It's on.
Oh, is it on? Oh, it's on. Sorry. Whoa. Well, hello, everybody. This is Movies with Mark. My name is Mark McPherson, movie critic for Moviespoon.com and TwinCitiesGeek.com. And I have my lovely wife, who is in the upper corner there. Very nice. And so for...
You're sucking up.
That's true. It's true. I'm a hopeless. So for today's episode, we're going to run through, since it's a pretty dry week, no new movies coming out in theaters right now, we are going to be going through the best and worst films of 2017. I got a few kind of flashing on the side there, kind of a little bit of spoilers, but I'm not going to reveal which number they're in. So right off the bat, we'll start off with just like the worst films of the year, just so we can end on a high note. So we can look forward to it, because like there's a lot of crap that came out this year, but it was a lot easier to choose the best films of the year than it was the worst ones. So there's gonna be like one through 10. So we'll start with 10. Number 10 is The Space Between Us, which was a very, very ridiculous kind of like sci-fi teen romance where you have Asa Butterfield playing this kid called Gardner. This is kind of like the most amazing kid. He was born kind of in space, more or less. His mom was pregnant before she went on a mission to Mars. She held the baby throughout the whole shuttle ride, and by the time she got down to Mars, she had the baby. She died, but Gardner survived, and he's kind of like this weird kid who's grown up in a zero gravity environment, and he doesn't know that much about Earth, and he's trying to study it. But when he gets to Earth, he ends up hooking up with this character called Tulsa that he's only known through chat rooms. She's played by Britt Robertson, who's got this really kind of like cocky attitude to her. She's got kind of like this weird accent. She knows how to pilot vehicles. She's kind of like a smart aleck about stuff. But the thing is, like, when Asa Butterfield's character, like, he's supposed to be like this smart guy on Mars. Like, he studied everything he knows about, maintaining irrigation on Mars, and he knows how to like get through certain electronics, and he has access to the internet. But when he gets down to Earth, he kind of doesn't know what he's doing. It's kind of like Boy in the Bubble type stuff. It's like, oh, it's rain, or oh, it's a horse. Ooh, and they try really stupid stuff to cover this up too. Like they try to make it so like most of what we see him studying Earth before he goes to Earth is he studies like two things. He studies a German film called Wings of Desire, which is that's one bad strike against a bad film. You show a better film in your own film. And the other thing he studies is a video on courtship from the 1950s. It's like there's a guy who has access to all this stuff, to the entire internet, and he only goes for like these two examples here, and it's just ridiculous. The whole romance with them goes nowhere. They try to develop it, but it has like these weird moments that don't really work. Like Tulsa can apparently play the piano, but they don't learn this until they're in a Costco for some reason. Gary Oldman is trying to catch up with them because he's the scientist who's like, oh no, we can't survive out on Earth, so it's kind of like a short circuit type deal. And it's like, there's bizarre science all around, but like the actors are just so hard to watch in these roles, like especially Asa Butterfield, who he's been stuff like Ender's Game, where he's actually been pretty good. But here, it just feels like they're trying to make him look like such a doofus who can't really do anything in this film. Like there's a moment where he's saying like, oh, like I've never felt rain before, like it's the most beautiful thing ever. It's like, you worked in irrigation in Mars. He's acting like he's never seen water before. No, it's just
I'm sorry, I'm being the rude one tonight. I'm not paying attention at all.
Okay. Well,
I got annoyed with something on our local website about some asshole saying just tipping stuff,
tipping garbage men.
Tipping garbage men,
It's,
well, someone was acting superior on the internet, But I stopped myself. From responding.
Okay.
Sorry.
But one of the other things I mentioned, like, yeah, like it's hard to watch Gary Oldman in this role too because he's supposed to play this sort of like, like crazy-haired scientist who's obsessed with this kid for like all the wrong reasons, and then you find out he's got more of a reason to, and a twist you can see coming a mile away. It's also sad to see Gary Oldman in this, especially after The Darkest Hour.
The Darkest Hour was a really good movie. What movie were you referencing before? I'm sorry, I put my phone away now.
It's the Space Between Us. It came out. I
didn't see that one.
It came out way early this year in January. I saw it with Sarah.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me that was bad, and I think she said it was bad too, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
And she's a different kind of movie watcher than you, I think. I think she just likes to go in and watch and have a good time, and she doesn't think much of it beyond that.
She does.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No. And
so
that's,
you get your money's worth every time that way. So.
And that's what was interesting to see, because she was trying to say something nice about this film, and she knew it was bad too, and she's just kind of like, well, it's a movie.
She's a nice person.
She was very nice about it, isn't it? It's like, well, that's the nicest thing you could say about it. It looked like a movie. It looked like a movie. It did some really weird stuff. Like they used stock footage horribly. Like if you hate like bad science where it sounds like they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like in order to revive this kid, the solution is to get in a shuttle and somehow break out of the atmosphere, which somehow Gary Oldman has been training himself to do the entire film, to get a shuttle that doesn't need extra booster rockets that can just like go up into the stratosphere. So that's his big moment, as he saves his life by getting a shuttle into space. Which
hey hon, what's this checkbox that says Twitch Cheers alert?
Oh, that's for that's if you get approved. They can do like cheers. They can do little tips or something like that, and then they'll come up on screen.
We're not approved for that.
No, but when they do, they'll come up.
I'm sorry. I know you did it to me yesterday. It pissed me off, but I was distracted beforehand, and now I really gotta pee. I should have gone beforehand. I know.
It's okay. It's okay. It happens. You gotta go. But a few more of the points I'll make about the Space Between Us is that. Like I said, like the bad science is terrible, but more than that, like even if you can overlook the science, even if you can overlook the sappy romance here, the whole twist of like it, because like the whole deal is that Asa Butterfield has come to Earth to find his father, because like his mother died on Mars, but he's thinking like, oh, who's my dad? And if you kind of deduct who the other characters are, it's not much of a mystery, and so you're just watching the film just kind of go through the motions at that point. And going through these really terrible motions of just horrible dialogue, just watching him being scared of horses and not understanding cars or food, or he's mystified by an eye wash station. This kid worked in irrigation, and he's freaking out about an eye wash station in a high school class. Just no inconsistency in this Bubble Boy movie. So,
Bubble Boy.
You know, one of those films where it's like, oh, I'm a special case. I've been in here all my life, and then I get out, and then I'm gonna end up dying, but I'm gonna try to live.
Oh, is that Wonder, or maybe? No.
Not quite. There were. I don't think it's quite like Wonder. I
didn't see that. I don't know. I don't know what movie you were talking about, so I'm like.
The space.
You're still talking about that one?
Yeah, just going off on one last point.
I thought you moved on to a different movie. So.
No, not quite yet. But yeah, the other one I remember this year there's one called Everything Everything, which was literally just about a girl who had this disease and had to stay indoors all the time.
Oh.
So it was literally like the Boy in the Bubble movie.
What the hell is Wonder about then? Ugly kid?
I actually haven't seen it. Like, one of the benefits about going to these press screenings that we don't see trailers, but then, I also don't watch trailers. So I just kind of hear about Wonder through, like, little press release statements and stuff like that. From what I've heard, it's kind of like a film about, raising a kid and, like, what it's like to be a kid. But one of those films that it's going to be more emotional for adults.
Oh, because, like, from the trailers, it looks like a kid with some kind of face mutation or something.
Yeah, it might be something like that. At least that's what I've heard. I'm gonna have to see Wonder. I know everyone's been raving about that. So.
I don't know. I have no desire to see it
for a while there.
I don't want to watch any tearjerkers. I just don't have time to waste on that anymore. I don't know. I don't want to watch a movie to feel sad anymore unless I know it's going to be really good. You know?
That's fine.
Doesn't do you a whole lot of good, I'm sure, but I just have decreasing interest in watching anything in the theater, for one. Unless I'm going with you and we don't have to pay for it and easily had a sitter.
So if someone else goes, then I'll go to the theater.
It's really expensive to go to the theater.
It is, yeah.
It's really expensive. In the last, about half of the movies I've seen in the past year or two, I was really disappointed in. So.
Oh, except like The Darkest Hour. And
I liked The Darkest Hour.
Yeah.
I liked, of the movies this year, I liked The Darkest Hour, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the Lego Batman movie.
Yes.
What other? I don't think. Have I seen any other ones in the theater? I tend to lose track of when things were.
None that I think you'd love, like, because we saw Ninjago.
No,
and we didn't really like
bland.
Ninjago. Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
Nah,
but it was boring. It didn't do anything interesting, and it was kind of predictable and just not entertaining enough for us to bring our kid there after watching it already.
Yeah. Just say, like, the 4 directors, it really shows that it was by, like, 4 different directors, and I think, like, 5 writers were that.
I think at that one, there was another critic there who's social with us.
Yeah.
And, he agreed to it. They brought their, like, C team or D team for this one.
Because they're rushing all these Lego movies out there, and
it's disappointing. The first 2 were really good.
Yeah.
I loved the first Lego movie, and I loved Lego Batman, and that was a great one that we were able to take our kid to, and she loved it, and it was fun. But, I've been a Batman fan for a long time, although I have not seen Justice League, and I don't plan to in theaters anyway, because it's terrible.
It's fair, yeah.
It's shitting all over Batman. And the Justice League in general. They take these awesome characters and just waste them.
I don't think there's any question that Lego Batman was the best DC movie this year.
and
we can admit it.
I've been
it was
really
that
disappointed in everything DC's come out with since The Dark Knight.
Yeah. You weren't a fan of Jonah Hex?
I didn't see it. And I like westerns, and I like the character Jonah Hex in the cartoons. I'm a big fan of all the animated stuff I've seen of DC, except for that one Superman with Supergirl and everything was oddly shiny. And then there's some other ones you didn't show me for some reason. I'm assuming it's because they're bad.
Yes.
The Killing Joke sounded really bad, so we didn't watch that one. Although I'm, like everybody else, a Joker fan. And I am a fan of the original comic book it's based off of, but it sounds like they deviated into making it all about Barbara Gordon in a really uninteresting way.
Yeah.
And in a kind of disturbingly sexual way. Not in an empowering sexual way, just like in a weird direction where she's, I don't know. And then there's the Harley Quinn one, which somehow also involved rape, and I don't understand why.
They're trying to make him
and
like
the voice actress, the first time I heard her trying to do the voice, the gal from The Big Bang Theory, it was like, I guess, but then the more I thought about it, and then I heard it again, and I'm like, no, actually, that's awful.
Yeah.
I don't think I could listen to a whole movie of that. So I was just like, I think they were just kind of cashing in on how popular Harley Quinn has become.
Yeah.
Which, gosh, the more Harley Quinn I see, the more I hate her, which is odd because I used to be obsessed with Harley Quinn since like junior high. I have the full run of her original comic book. I have the Barbie Harley Quinn somewhere in our basement.
Yeah.
In its original box.
It's more like ramped up again, yeah.
But then she started when she started deviating costumes is when her character started going downhill.
Yeah.
Because they turned her from a playful character, which I will admit, skin tight outfit is very kind of sexual to begin with, but they started ramping up the sexual, and when they started doing that, they started destroying her character. Because at the same time, they started making her a more girl power character when she was already, she was always sort of like more domestic abuse victim who escapes, kind of. But then she kind of falls back into it, but then it just kind of makes it all better when she escapes again from it, when she wakes up from it, and her friend Ivy pulls her out of it, but I don't like her when she's alone.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that they started bringing Ivy back in the comic books, but I still feel like the more recent comics of Harley Quinn I've read just are really lacking on what Harley used to be.
Yeah, they
ramped up the silliness too much.
She's overblown.
They tried to turn her into female Joker, but she wasn't ever a completely female Joker.
No.
Her part of what appealed was her obsession. Because as a geek, you're always obsessed. And I was geeking over Harley while she was geeking over the Joker.
So you're geeking over the geek. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's lacking from her, which I'm sorry I deviated so much.
Well, I'm glad we delved into the Harley Quinn.
But I guess I'm still to a degree obsessed with Harley Quinn. She's the reason I watched that stinker of a movie, Suicide Squad, more than once.
That's the reason most everyone watched Suicide Squad.
Even though they didn't really get her character right.
No. They're just like, I got to see Harley on the
Harley
screen.
and the Joker! Even though it's not Harley and the Joker, but it's Harley and the Joker.
In David Ayer's weird vision, I got to see her up on screen. Something.
I've been waiting for it since they were talking about putting her in a Batman movie right after the Schumacher films.
Yeah.
And it never happened until then, and it was awful disappointment, but...
Well, Schumacher promised the world after those films, so...
Yeah.
that didn't happen. For good reason.
Bat nipples. But you know... I do want them to stop rehashing the Joker over and over again.
Yeah.
But I kind of think that they're done now.
Hopefully.
DC. I think the DC films are done. I think they screwed them up too much, and Warner Brothers is a sinking ship that can't afford that to sink with
Depends.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if they want to stay afloat, they'll give up on the DC films because they've ruined them.
No, they need to get Snyder off.
Yeah, that too. He's not that great. I mean, he did Watchmen too, right?
Yeah, he's one of these guys who
he's the one that... I think if it were better directed, that could have been an even better movie. I liked the movie, but I can see the flaws you've pointed out to me, and I can't unsee them.
Yeah.
And the flaws that they are very Zack Snyder isms, where he, does that slowed down effect all the time, and the color palettes he uses. I can totally see that.
And that's the thing.
But I loved The Watchmen. I like Alan Moore stuff. So
Snyder is...
Alan Moore writes good stories.
Well, Snyder is he's definitely a fan of the comic books, but that's the problem, is that he's like a fan, but he takes the wrong things from them. Visually he gets Watchmen right. He gets it right, but he misses a lot of the big themes towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
That he just kind of glazes over just to make something else that looks a little bit cooler.
So is he a fan, or is he just a fan of the big books?
I think he might be like a fan in general, just because of what he did with Batman versus Superman.
Okay, because sometimes it's Tim Burton read one book and based it off that.
Yeah.
No,
he proved that with Batman versus Superman, because he's I like the Doomsday Arc, I want to put that in. Oh, I like the Dark Knight Returns fight, I want to put that in. Oh, I like Trinity, I want to put Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman on the screen at the same time. And he's dragging from all these different elements, but he's taking none of the themes and just kind of combining them into this big old pastiche of just putting comic book panels up on screen and not understanding them that well. And I think that's the problem. Is he does stuff great visually, because that's what everyone was freaking out about when he did Sucker Punch, because he wrote and directed Sucker Punch, and they're he cannot write. Don't let him near this script.
Sucker Punch was so wasted because the trailers looked cool, and then you got in and it was so boring, and then other parts just felt so awkward because, I mean, it starts off with a pedophile. There's like so much sexual stuff in it.
Yeah.
In like the rapey kind.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh. But that could be tolerable if it wasn't also boring at the same time.
That too, yeah.
Because an action movie shouldn't be that slow paced.
No.
I don't know. Though there are fast paced action movies I find boring because I'm not that into action movies in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes not.
I'm fussy about movies, I guess.
That's fine. Everyone's got their... no one's like 100% agreement on every film. You will find one detractor who doesn't like certain film for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. That's more than just being like, contrarian. Like, they generally don't like it. So with that, like, number 10, we did The Space Between Us. Number 9 for the worst films 2017. It's one that I didn't want to put on here, but I have to because it's so damn boring and derivative. It's Werner Herzog's Queen of the Desert. This film had been at festivals and it was shelved for like 2 years and finally came out, and we finally found out why. It's because it's a terrible film. It's about the life of like Gertrude Bell, who was around the same time as like T.E. Lawrence, wandering through the desert, talking politics with people, meeting different people, and just going on different journeys. And Herzog makes her life seem very timid and kind of like boring and pretentious. Like, when she's in like the parts of the desert that aren't like, when she's around like culture and people out there, her romances are very, very dry and very boring. When she's traveling the desert, she's writing in her diary all these really like supposed to be like deep philosophical entries, and they're just like, they mean nothing coming out of there. And the cast here is just, it's not really working. I mean, Nicole Kidman, bless her heart, she's trying here, but she's working with a script that just makes Gertrude Bell seem kind of dull and boring. And it's like, I don't know, she did a lot of cool stuff here. It seems like there'd be more than just kind of this dull trek through the desert. And like, the one thing I hate about this film more than anything is just how derivative it is. Like, especially like you have at one point Gertrude Bell meets T.E. Lawrence from from the story of Lawrence of Arabia. But the thing is, T.E. Lawrence is played by Robert Pattinson, and you really have to squint to kind of buy him as T.E. Lawrence here. And at the same time, it's like, I don't want to think of Lawrence of Arabia. I don't want to compare it to that, but there's no choice here because Herzog's soundtrack, it sounds like it's like the dime store version of that soundtrack, because you're reminded of that soundtrack at all times. It's like, da, da,
it was
da,
such
da,
a dull movie, I couldn't continue watching it with you. It just was going nowhere.
Yeah, you tapped out, and I don't blame you.
I think I either just went to bed or I asked you to put something else on, because I couldn't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I watched it a little later.
Because we were watching it at home. You had it on DVD or just digital.
Yeah.
So.
And it is
horrible.
I'm pretty sure it's 2 hours long, but again, like, it slogs at a pace through this. And it sucks because Herzog is not a bad film director. Like, last year he did 2 great documentaries. He did that internet documentary called like Lo and Behold, and then he did Into the Inferno, one about volcanoes. He's a great film director in terms of his documentaries, but I get the feeling that he made Queen of the Desert just to go shoot in the desert. Because there's a lot of shots where he just kind of like forgets about the characters. It just says, look at how cool these giant mountains are and these vast desert plains are. It's like, yeah, they're really cool, but there's not much of a story to be invested within here. It's just gonna dull.
It just kind of felt like, oh, you do a little here, nothing really happens. You go here, nothing really happens.
Yeah.
I think I recall thinking that the actress choice was odd too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? I mean, this was a while ago, so I don't remember 100%.
Yeah.
What was that, Nicole Kidman?
That was Nicole Kidman.
Yeah. So the time changes with her age in the movie were confusing to me.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't she supposed to be young at some point, and she didn't look young, and then she was old, and she didn't look old, or she just looks like Nicole Kidman the whole way through, as Nicole Kidman is aged now. Was
Yeah.
that the problem? I mean, it's been a long time, so
Well,
it feels like a long time.
Well, the bigger problem with that is just how poorly edited this film is too. Like
Yeah.
it cuts through big moments in time with kind of these like very quick like fade to black transitions. And like it's like at one point she'll be like discussing politics at a table. We'll fade to black. All of a sudden she's in the desert, and it kind of leaves you confused. Like okay, how did she get to this point? And just kind of feels like Herzog isn't really giving us time to breathe or comprehend. You know, just like the little it's subtitle. I think he has like a few subtitles, but not a lot that keeps you up with the timeline. Because unless you're familiar with like, because I actually had to go look up most of like Gertrude's timeline here just to figure out where she was at certain points. Because I was confused. Like I had to watch it just a second time just to like nail down where in time she is at this point. I mean, yeah, because like I understand like this film was made like 2 years ago, it was shelved. You understand why?
Yeah.
I hear, I'm not sure if it's finished yet, but I hear they are working on a new film about Gertrude Bell.
Wasn't there some kind of like weird something I thought was odd? If I'm remembering correctly, like I said, I don't remember.
It was
exactly
earlier this year, yeah.
At some point, wasn't there like a romance thing that seemed to, or you thought the romance was going to happen, but then it just stops and disappears, and you.
Yeah, she has a few romances
like,
that just kind of come and
kinda,
go.
like fizzles out. Nothing really happens.
Yeah, she has I forget who's the character's name, but he's played by James Franco.
Okay.
And they have like that romance where they meet at a party. They go to a certain area. And it's like, oh, isn't it lovely? And then there's a montage of them running around these ruins. And then it just kind of like fizzles out from there. Just kind of like, oh, I have to go somewhere. And then I think he just kind of dies when he leaves. So.
Yeah, I don't know. The way I'm remembering this movie, which is still kind of vague because it was so early in the year.
It is hazy, yeah.
Was she kind of feeling like equal parts boring and Mary Sue? Does that sound right, or am I misremembering the movie?
I don't think so much Mary Sue so much as just kind of
Boring.
being just kind of like pretentious, because like all these scenes in the
Yeah.
desert where she's writing in her diary,
Yeah.
they're just the most bland, uninteresting, like, because they're all like reflections on life, and you know, like where do we exist in the grand scheme of things. She's writing all this while she's just sitting in like a one of those like hammocks in the dunes.
Yeah,
It's just like,
weird.
I'm pretty sure she might have had more on her mind than just these kind of like Terrence Malick style, you know, contemplations about life going on. I'm pretty sure there was more going on in her life than that.
So it made her the queen of the desert, or is it just because she's a white woman, and it takes place in the desert?
Well,
Thus,
she's
she's the queen.
She trekked through the desert. I mean, she kind of went through the same paths as T.E. Lawrence. So
I guess, yeah.
So she's kind of in that level, and I hope the next film they work on with her, which you're doing now, I hope that ends up being a lot better, because this made her just look like the more boring person off to the side who wasn't as exciting as T.E. Lawrence.
We had a viewer and then they left. I was going to welcome them, but then I looked down and they had left.
That's okay. So yeah, that was Queen of the Desert, number 9.
What's going on with my hair?
Number 8 for the worst of the year is The Circle.
The Circle? I don't
Yeah.
think I heard of this one. You didn't tell me about it?
Yeah, this one kind of snuck in there. It stars Emma Watson and Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be about like this kind of like, you know, Apple, Google type company. You know, they...
Oh, no, I remember this one now.
Yep.
But I had no interest because I don't think Emma Watson's a very good actress. So
Yeah. Well, here it really doesn't work, because she's supposed to be playing this girl who's she's entering in this company just as like an administrator person. You know, she's just in there to answer phones, do QA. But all of a sudden, you know, because, you know, like they say, like, we embrace ideas here at the Circle, and we want to hear all your ideas. And she somehow comes in and like introduces some new concepts, because she's worried about what the company's doing. Because their latest thing is they're going to put cameras everywhere. Cameras everywhere. We're going to have cameras at the beach so you can see what's going on at the beach. You have cameras at my house. Cameras everywhere so we can track every single person. And so...
creeper technology.
Yeah. And so Emma Watson she's concerned about this, so she's trying to figure out like man, I don't feel right doing this. And
I
then
don't want cameras everywhere. Ugh. I mean, I guess they sort of are, but
yeah, but then this goes to like a more silly degree because she ends up contacting John Boyega's character, who's apparently been this developer who's kind of been in hiding, who's developed some of this technology, and he's saying like, look, there's a bigger secret here, but you gotta get in good with them. So she starts bringing in more ideas.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So are they both doing American accents to this movie?
Of course.
Why?
Because it's in America.
Her American accent isn't particularly good either.
Yeah, it's not really good here now. But
she's just resting on those Hermione Granger laurels.
Yep. It's like, look, we got Hermione to film. So she gets, the problem is she gets in like too deep. Like she says like, hey, it's not just enough that we have cameras. What if like she essentially, what eventually boils down to is she volunteers herself to be the first person to constantly stream her life.
So you go to the bathroom and there's a camera there?
Yeah, well, from what I understand, they might block it out at one point, but essentially every single part of her day is, you know, she's kind of like, she's got some kind of like vision type thing, like she can see like all these comments and everything. It's like,
who's watching this shit?
People.
Why?
Somebody.
Why? So that they can creep on you?
Yeah.
They can stalk you and they can just show up, say, hey, I'm on TV now, or, you know, I'm streaming on the internet. Wait, I am streaming.
You are streaming.
But I'm not in the bathroom.
But she's got like two of the film's credits. She has all these like chat messages that you see coming up around her, and they feel like stuff.
Sounds like too much information to walk around in your daily life doing though.
Yeah, she's going a little bit too far in this, and
I feel like people who are on Facebook constantly are destroying part of their lives.
she goes like up to, and it goes to like an insanity because eventually she starts amping up to like a hive collective where she's organized a system where every single person in the world can sort of like, you know, contact her and hear her, so that if they set up a program, they can kind of do like an Amber Alert thing where it's like, hey, I'm looking for this person, and every single person is gonna have like their phones out and they're gonna like say like, oh, I found this person here, because like at one point they try to find a criminal, and so everyone gets their phones out and they track the criminal down. They got every angle on her, and they capture her.
There's no way this doesn't go into some Big Brother's watching kind of wrong think and things like that territory, because is this the wider commentary they're showing is like where our social media is going or something? Is that the connection here? Because I mean, people take that shit too far.
Yeah, and this is like the 20th century version of a subgenre that was called hacksploitation, which is
that like going back to shit, now I spaced on the name of the movie.
Films
Sandra Bullock.
Like The Net.
The Net. There you go.
Films like The Net and
it's
Hackers and The Lawnmower Man. It's in that vein.
Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man it's about virtual reality and how it's gonna make apes smarter.
Okay. So it's part Ready Player One, part Planet of the Apes. Is that what you're saying?
Not quite so much in that vein, but it could have gone that way. You never know. But the thing is, like, I think it's based on a book, and I think the book takes a darker turn to the end.
Okay.
But this ending kind of ends on like a weird note where you're not quite sure if it's trying to be like commentary or happy or a darker ending, because it ends with essentially Emma Watson basically like saying like, oh, let's make everything public, including the CEO and the politician he's working with.
And then Tom Hanks was like, no, you can't show me. What did you think we were doing here?
But that's the thing.
Probably a line from the trailer. What did you think we were doing here?
No,
right?
because he's trying to seem like open, and it's like, I'm open to everything. So of course, like, she reveals it at a conference, and he's in the background just like whispering to like the politician played by Patton Oswalt, saying like, we are so fucked.
And Patton Oswalt's like, they're filming us right now.
Yep.
That was on camera, you idiot.
And it kind of like ends after that. They don't really address what happens. Just kind of ends with like Emma Watson's character greeting some drones that are following her, and it's like whatever message they were going for here just got muddied and lost. And it's just like, oh, look how creepy this technology is. Like, okay, what's your point? It's like those like exploitations things. Like, oh, computers are creepy and they're scary and there's a boogeyman out there to get you. And the film just kind of ends with a shrug. It's like,
Is that how Herwin did the AI and the phone at the end, then try to kill the human race?
Yeah. Something like that.
That's the name of the movie, right? Her? The one with
Her.
Scarlett Johansson as the phone.
Pretty much.
Did they have phone sex in that movie? AI projection of Scarlett Johansson?
Kinda. If you want the Her spoiler, yeah, they kind of do something similar to that, where they hire a go-between.
Did they make Herstory? I'm sorry.
We got it.
The RuPaul pun in there.
We got it. We got the line of the film right there.
I know I'm not funny. I'm awful. I don't care.
No, that's a pretty good joke.
If you say so. Puns are the lowest form of comedy.
I disagree.
Actually, no. It's probably the lowest form is probably all those fart jokes Marcy thinks are hilarious. So
yeah. So yeah, that was number 8 for the worst films of the year. Number 7 for the worst film of the year is Diary of a Wimpy Kid: The Long Haul. Fitting title.
Didn't see it. Did you take the kid?
No.
Okay.
Thankfully, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because this film is it's kind of by the numbers, and it's also pretty disgusting in its conception. It's all about it's like the 4th film in like the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series where they're all going on a trip to grandma's, but Greg is he's had like this problem where he stuck his hand in a diaper, and for some reason all the adults filmed it and put it online, and now he's viral and everyone thinks of him as Poopy Hands or whatever he's called in the film.
No, I think the kid would think that's funny.
You should probably think that's funny. Yeah, and to be fair, I think some kids would think it's funny. At least the family I was sitting next to were yucking it up. But after that, so, he wants to clear his name. Now, of course, if you're familiar with any this viral crap, if you just lay low, it'll die down after a while.
Yeah.
But he figures, oh, there's a video game convention. I can go contact the streamer and then be on his stream. Everyone will think I'm cool. I'll be really cool.
If you're on the internet, some people might think you're cool, but everyone else thinks you're a loser, and I'm including myself on this one.
Yeah.
No one thinks I'm cool. Maybe my brother. Some things he said imply that. No one else does, though. I'm not even convinced that he does. But
yeah,
maybe that's just where my self-esteem is.
But apparently in like Greg's world, there's only you're either like the biggest loser in the world, or
the coolest.
The coolest.
No in between mediocrity, huh?
No. So of course, when they have to go on a trip to grandma's across country, he has to change the GPS coordinates. So he diverts their little travel, and they end up going there, and they learn their lesson, and it's a goofy movie. But it's
when the parents notice that, like, hey, honey, I don't think we're going in the right direction at all.
No, because his parents are stupid.
All adults are stupid in movies, right?
And this is like the ultimate stupid of road trip movies. Like, it hits all the expected beats that you think no road trip movie would do this in this day and age. No, they do. They go
have,
to
the puking in the bathrooms and things like that.
Oh, they go one step further than that. They have a scene where they go to a local carnival type, local carnival with petting and stuff like that.
Sure.
And at one point, Greg's brother Roderick ends up, he's starving because their mother is all health food addicted and stuff like that. So he goes to get some junk food, and he sees deep fried butter. I'm gonna eat 4 sticks of this. Now
I don't know why people eat 1 stick of that.
Well, the thing is, he has to eat 4 sticks so that when he gets on a ride, he can puke, and the puke can go up the screen.
No.
And we can see the CGI puke come towards us and then smack into someone else, because that's funny.
No. I can see why it's funny to kids, though.
Yeah.
We have a small child, and everyth's funny to her.
To be fair, that puke was CGI, and it looked more believable than the other characters, like Roderick trying to be the angsty teen, I need money for my car. And the dad saying oh, I gotta constantly work or I'm gonna lose my job on this trip. And Mom just trying to get everyone to, be happy on this little trip to Grandma's, and it's not working out, and it's all the expected beats. And
kids aren't happy on trips, they just complain. Or that's my experience. Maybe that's just our kid.
Pretty much. But it's so derivative, all these other films, and it doesn't even bother to solve most of this stuff. Like Dad's whole deal about, maybe losing his job. Mm-hmm. Like, all this stuff gets wrapped up at the end by, like, Greg's explanation, saying, like, Dad asked for more time at the office, so that got solved.
But asked for more time at the office?
Yeah, I didn't know. Apparently you could just ask, and that happened. Like, they never really address it fully.
I don't understand what that has to do with losing your job, asking for more time. Like,
well, asking for vacation time.
Oh, more vacation time?
Yeah.
But that's probably not the real problem, because when people are freaking out about taking vacation time and going on a trip,
yeah,
it's not for lack of vacation time sometimes, it's for the pressure to not take that vacation time.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure my work wouldn't care if I never took my vacation time.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And that's a trope I hate so much, where like where the dad is on this trip trying to balance work and that, like, it's so overused, and it's so like manipulative, because he's like trying to hide it from his family. Like, I don't want them to know that I'm working.
Well, see, it's like the opposite of what you do too. You just take your laptop and blatantly work. And I'm just like, okay, whatever.
But I don't thankfully, I don't like sneak out to like business meetings or stuff like that, which is what he does in the film. And
see, if you don't want them to work when you're on a vacation, go somewhere where there's no internet connection.
Yep.
That's what I did. No internet connection. There was only one phone in the building at the front desk. There was no television.
Yeah.
Just family fun.
And that would have been a more interesting concept, but again, like, that would require some creativity from this film. And it doesn't have that. Like I said, like, they wrap up that sequence because they don't really talk much about his job. They wrap up like Roderick is apparently looking for money for his car. He gets that just by asking in the end, because that never really comes around either.
Why don't they make the kid get a job?
Because we don't have time for that. We got to wrap this crap up, and we don't really want to address it at all.
I mean, we're millennials, and we're usually the ones that got away with not having to get a job to get cars, assumedly, although that wasn't my case. But I guess no. I guess I did get the car, but I had to pay for everything. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some do, some don't. I knew people who did have to pay for their cars, at least. But I think we were the generation that got accused of getting everything handed to them.
Maybe,
is that what's going on with generation? Are we on to Z now?
Something like that.
Is that what's going on now too? Do we have to nip this one in the bud?
Not really, no. I mean, but that's the thing, like, that would be a more interesting aspect to explore, of, having him getting a job.
Having to work for it.
Having to work for it. Having to do something.
Just, show him cleaning toilets and, I don't know, getting yelled at by burger...
Yeah.
Ordering public.
I don't know. We don't have time for that arc. It's just used as an excuse so that he can sneak into like this. He can sneak his brother into the video game conference, saying like, "Oh, if you win this, there's this prize money." And of course, that doesn't happen, so they forget about that arc.
I think they were gonna win something.
Because there was like apparently a money prize there for like a Guitar Hero type game or something like that.
Was the brother really good at Guitar Hero?
He was a musician, so he was really good. But then like
that doesn't translate to Guitar.
No, it doesn't.
Hero,
so of course he fails.
It's played differently than playing a guitar.
Yeah, and there's, but like every single thing is telegraphed ahead of time. Like for instance, there's a scene where Dad says he's on the cell phone. He says like, "I need everyone to be quiet in the car." So, of course, no one's quiet in the car.
Are they ever?
No, but then, like, of course, since everyone's, not quiet in the car, then, of course, the car's got to spin out of control and eventually crash, and then they got to figure out what to do, and they try to get the car out of the mud, and of course all the family gets out to look at the tire, and then the mud splatters into their face, of course.
Oh, that's a cliche, yeah.
Oh, this one was
I get it.
Cliche City.
But you know what? Do you think cliches really only matter to people who've seen a lot of movies like you? Do they matter
Probably.
to people who only watch them every now and then?
Prefer-
They probably don't matter to kids because kids
No.
haven't seen the other movies with the cliche in it.
It probably doesn't, but at the same time, if there is like a film that's using it better, then I think that's argument enough. Like Goofy movie
Yeah.
had much better arcs
Yes.
than this, and more unexpected stuff for essentially just going on a road trip type film.
But that movie came out in the 90s. This movie came out, this year.
Mm-hmm.
The kids who watched it in the 90s are not going to be the same kids watching it now. Those kids didn't see a Goofy movie.
No.
That movie's not in the theater. They're
Kids-
seeing this one, which is also, I believe, based off of a book series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a sequel. So they might have been familiar with those, and I'm wondering if this is the direct adaptation from the book series, but I haven't read those.
It's apparently like I think the book actually is called The Long Haul, and it is a road trip movie.
Road trip book.
Yeah, road trip story. Yes,
Story?
That's a road trip story. I don't know how much of it is based on it. I think it's fairly close to most parts of the book. I haven't read it, but from what I've heard from some people who've read it, saying it's fairly close to it.
Okay.
Um,
When did these books come out? Did they come out in the early 2000s then?
Uh,
Or did they come out
later.
more recently?
later 2000s, I think,
Okay.
and then they've kind of like progressively been coming out since around that time.
Alright.
But I mean, I don't know how big like fans will be on it too, because this is like an entirely different cast from like the other Diary of a Wimpy Kid films.
Oh, they waited too long. The kids got too old?
Yep, and now so like there was like all
Why
these.
would they bother then?
So now there's all these like people coming and saying like, "Oh, that's not my Roderick. That's not my Greg."
I kind of think if you're going to do a movie with kids, you better be quick if you're doing a sequel.
Yeah,
Because otherwise, I think you have to start all over again.
that's
I
what
think
they do.
That's part of why Series of Unfortunate Events didn't get a sequel, is because if they were going to do it with the same cast, they had to do it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't feel like they made enough money also. But,
Yeah. Pretty much.
But then, like, if they wanted to do his Dark Materials, if they wanted to do that, they'd have to reboot it at this point because it's been too long. The kids are too old. If they wanted to make more Chronicles of Narnia, the kids are probably all adults by now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will say one of the weirdest things I saw in the film was watching Alicia Silverstone as the mom sing a Spice Girl song in its entirety, not once, but twice, in the car out loud.
I don't know if I this might be bad, but I don't know if I could see Alicia Silverstone in a movie now without thinking about just her being in Clueless or Batgirl with the... Did she have the bat nipples too? I can want to say she did.
I think they tried to cover that up with the insignia.
Bat nipples.
It's a multitude of problems, that film.
Well, the reason I say that is because I haven't actually seen her in a movie since the 90s. So...
It's been a while. It's been a while. And she's not very good here either, so...
I don't know. She was fine in Clueless.
Well, yeah, she
But
was
that's
great in
the
a couple
only
films since the
movie I
90s.
saw her in that was worth watching as far as I can remember. So,
Yeah.
oh.
So that was number 7, the worst of the year. Number 6, the worst of the year is Wish Upon.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart decides will come true. Unless you're Hitler.
So this is a very ridiculous horror concept of a film. Like it has an interesting idea, which is there's this Chinese box, which is like apparently infested by the devil or whatever, and it'll grant you like I think it's like 7 wishes or something like that. And they'll make them come true, but if they come true, something bad has to happen, which essentially means someone has to die.
This was that one, when you told me about it, I'm like, so like that, not Outer Limits, but the...
Oh, the Twilight Zone episode about
that Twilight Zone episode
box?
with the box, the mysterious box.
Yeah.
You push it. And
Well, this is like that same concept, except you can press it like 7 times
yeah,
before you die.
I think that probably is what's making it worse.
Yeah.
Because doesn't it take out some of the mystery then?
Yeah.
Some of the thriller, I don't know.
Well,
Some of the tension.
Well, she doesn't fully figure it out. Like, they don't fully explain it until like around like wish 4 or 5. But you see what's happening here. You can put the strings together. But the character who's doing it is this character played by Joey King called Claire, and she's like, she's a poor girl. Her dad is, embarrasses her. She doesn't have the best clothes, so of course she gets the box, and she makes all the superficial things you expect her to wish for. She wishes for, to be rich, to be popular at school, to get the boy she wants, to not have her dad be embarrassing, which I think that wish might have actually failed because her dad is played by Ryan Felipe. And
What did you do to him?
well, apparently her dad used to be an excellent saxophone player. And to make him less embarrassing, he somehow plays the saxophone, and all of her friends are kind of like, "Oh man, your dad's really hot." There's a very creepy moment where I forget her name, but the one who played Barb from Stranger Things is sort of like making these kind of like dreamy eyes at Ryan Felipe playing a saxophone.
So it kind of turns a little shades of American Beauty in there, where the friends are fantasizing about the dad, but they try to play it off as not being creepy.
They thankfully cut it off. Like the moment they show her making dreamy eyes at saxophone Ryan Felipe, some executive must came and say, "No, you stop this right here." It's like, okay, fine, that we won't go anywhere with that.
So saxophones have still been sexy, even though Bill Clinton played one.
It's like the most ridiculous thing because
I don't know. I don't think an older man playing a saxophone makes them attractive or not embarrassing.
I don't think it would exactly swoon teenage girls.
No. I don't think teenage girls are into saxophones right now, are they? I think they're usually into pop music of some sort, or I don't know. I don't know what's popular with teenagers right now. I just know that they dress like it's still the 90s.
Neither does the person who wrote this script, because they insert.
Obviously, if they're thinking saxophones are sexy,
they insert so many dated reference here. Stuff like characters will say stuff like "awesome sauce." And,
it's that movie.
Yeah, you remember this one.
I didn't see it, but I know enough about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like that tobacco ad with the 10-year-old memes in it.
Yeah.
It's a trap!
Well, some guy who picked up a publication of some teen magazine and thinks he knows everything about young people and wrote up this script with all these memes and stuff in there. And
teen magazines are just a collection of advertisements like all magazines are.
Yeah. Also, teens really don't read those type of magazines anymore, so they are for people struggling to...
People read a whole lot of magazines anymore?
Older people?
Well,
so
yeah. I guess
some
I
older
know an
person out
older
there is
lady
reading a
who
teen
reads a
magazine.
lot. I've never seen a teenager with the teen magazine.
No. And it's it's so if Claire had a likable enough arc to her or something to her character, you'd feel bad for her. But by the time she realizes what this box does, and that if you make these wishes, you're gonna kill more people and you're gonna die, she still says, screw all of you. Screw all of you. I'm still gonna make the wishes. And she becomes so insufferable towards the end that when they have that twist ending of spoilers, she dies at the end. They make it seem because her last wish is saying I wish to never find that box and none of this to ever happen. It's okay, well, that looks like everything's back to normal. But it's no, if you think about the technicalities, no, you still made your last wish, which means
it wouldn't count.
From the technicality point, so your soul gets taken. So it's not really that surprising when she goes to finally meet that boy she's finally gonna talk to, and then she gets smacked by a car.
That's stupid. Empress Pookie's here. Hello.
Hey, Empress Boogie. How you doing? What was weird about Wishpond, like, after that film ended, like, I was trying to hold in my laughs the whole time.
Yeah.
Because this film was goddamn ridiculous, and I was trying not to laugh so hard.
Were there people that are taking it seriously?
There were a few, but by the time it got to the end, they had this really ridiculous music video about, like, when you wish or something like that, and they were showing, like, B-roll of maggots and monsters, and I was like, I can't take it anymore. And this one guy got really offended that I laughed at this film.
There's been some movies that you and I laugh at that other people are taking completely serious.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well,
I guess me and one of my friends laughed during The Dark Knight too, and no one else was laughing. Maybe there's something wrong with us. I don't know.
there was kind of a debacle at the screening for Split, where
Yeah.
because I was there with Keegan, my friend there. We watched every Shyamalan film, and we got to the end of the film, which anyone who's seen Split, they know that the last 30 seconds is that really ridiculous twist that you know is coming and that you know it's gonna happen. Like, because the whole film, it didn't feel like a twist. Like, oh, it kind of ends on, there's a little bit of a twist, but not kind of a left field bullshit type of twist. So like, okay, this is pretty good. Title occurs, end credits are gonna come, and then that music from Unbreakable starts off, and they pan across the bar and they show that actor, and we just couldn't last. We cracked up. We were just like, oh, fuck you, Shyamalan. You did it!
Everything has to be a cinematic universe now, Mark. Everything's a cinematic universe.
You went for that cinematic universe. It's like, it was the last 30 seconds. You were that close. You had a great film here, and then you went for that superhero money.
Everything's got to be cinematic universe.
I didn't even hate the film, because up until that point, if you leave at the 30-second mark, it's a pretty good thriller. And then you get to that and you're like, oh, fuck. That happens.
He can't help himself. He's got to do it. He's got to throw in the twist.
He at least made it unexpected.
So Mark, you got to keep going, because I want to find out where the rings falls on this.
Wait,
Empress Pookie says got doodled upon. What does that mean? Someone drew on you?
Doodled?
Or is that a slang term I'm not familiar with?
I think
I'm way out of it.
is that thing that I think Empress Pookie's the one who's been sending me like the snowman meme stuff.
Snowman memes.
There was a film that came out this year called The Snowman, where it had this really ridiculous poster where it's just kind of like written like a children's drawing of like a snowman. It says like, "Oh, Mr. Detective, you could have saved lives if you were only here in time." And it's this really dorky.
She says what?
Okay, that's not.
Someone sending it to you.
That's not that. Okay, because I've been seeing a lot of snowman memes have been coming my way. So
it's probably something simple. I don't know.
Probably because people are badgering me to finally see Snowman, because I haven't, because they're saying it's definitely the worst film of the year. So I gotta see Snowman eventually.
I don't know. When I was in high school, a guy I knew started just randomly drawing on my shoe. Is that what kind of thing happened to you? It says, yeah, a friend doodled on her. Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Well, you're in luck, because number 5 on my list of the worst of the year is Rings.
Oh, yeah. So
Rings.
I wanted to know, because you had the poster up for it.
Yeah.
And I liked the first Ring movie, kind of like the second one, but I also haven't seen them since they came out. And this one just made me cringe, because it's just coming out of multiple airplane TVs. How?
Well, that's kind of where the creativity, because that's in the first scene. That's where the creativity starts and ends with this film. Because the appeal of Rings is that it's a ghost story that you don't question much. You throw in the tape. The Sudoku comes out. She freaks you out, and then a couple days pass, and then you die. Simple ghost story type stuff.
I felt like there was more lore or whatever in the first movie and the second movie, because
there's
she got the crazy mom and stuff like that, and then in the original Japanese movies there definitely was some lore there. Yeah,
there's lore to the character and the identity of it.
Yeah.
The problem with Rings is they focus way too much on the technicalities of it. Because it starts with
that's the wrong focus to have with this.
Yeah, because it starts with Johnny Galecki's character from Big Bang Theory. He's a professor who finds the tape, and he figures out that I figured out the formula. you get the tape. You only got 7 days. If you show the tape to someone else, it transfers the curse over to them. Then you're not affected. So then he figures, well, I'm going to do some experimenting with this. So I'm going to start up this college program that's secretive, where everyone has to watch the tape. Well, we track your progress, we see what happens to you, and then you pass it on to the next person. Keep playing hot potato with it.
Oh, he's a bad, bad man.
And apparently, I'm trying to think, well, why would anyone do this? And then, like, the most ridiculous reason. They find out where all these students are going for this. And he has, on campus, where he works, this sort of secretive bar lounge type area with techno music playing and drinks.
Sounds really stupid. Especially since, like, the ghost that kills people is also, like, a child and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. It feels weird to put that villain into that sort of situation. I don't know. I think a better angle was, what happened to this little girl, or what happened to this this mom that's in the video,
and that's what it should be.
What's with the crazy lady? I think they would have had a better angle going into what happened to her crazy ass mom or something like that, who tried to kill her baby or something like that.
And they do get to that lore, but they don't until like the third act, because most of the film is just trying to figure out the technicalities of it. So since he's scanned in the VHS copy, so now it's a digital file. You pass the digital file over to someone else. But then, like, it happens with, like, Joey King plays... No, wait, no, not Joey King. Matilda Lutz plays this character called Julia, who finds out that her boyfriend's involved with this experiment. And her boyfriend, I think the boyfriend shows it to her, and she becomes part of the curse. And they're like, oh, no problem. We just copy the file, and we give it to someone else. Mm-hmm. But oh no, we can't copy the file, because now it has error 7777777. You get it? And... And now it's corrupted, so now they can't escape the curse.
So basically, they went to, what if Samara transferred to a more modern medium?
Yeah. But it's bullshit in this context too, because it's like, oh, we can find clues because with that corrupted file, we can take out. There's like extra bits of footage that are now in it. Now we can take it out and we can cobble it together in Final Cut. It's like, wait a minute, so
but why?
But that doesn't make sense, because if you could take parts of it out, couldn't you just take the whole clip out and then re-export it in Final Cut and then port it to someone else?
See, the thing with the cursed video in the original Ring 2 movies, this is something that she burned into the tape.
Yeah.
She's got, I can't remember what the power is called, but it's like a mental power to burn things into it.
Yeah.
And part of why, this is a really old movie, so I mean, not really old, but it's been out for long enough. I think I can spoil the movie for you.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how I think she's got the little girl demon, whatever the heck she is, got killed by her mother is because she couldn't control her power.
Yep.
Basically. And she was an angry little girl who was being locked in a barn. So
yeah, it's the same thing.
So she's exacting revenge,
Yeah.
But to the angle that it sounds like they went with Rings, it's
very
a cash
poorly
grab.
thought out.
It's a cash grab.
It's a cash grab.
Bad angle. I think they could have made it work with a better story.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, isn't there a third Ring movie in the Japanese version or something, or was it a Korean movie that they added on to that?
Probably is. There's
something. I feel like there was a third one.
Yeah.
There was a third movie in the original. I'm wondering what the storyline was of that movie and if it was any better than this.
Oh. It probably was.
I would assume so.
Yeah, because that's the big problem is just, like having the digital copy there. And of course, like, this film the actors are horrible in this. Like, simple lines they have in here are just delivered terribly. Like, at one point,
mm-hmm.
there's like a bird that's like affected by someone and ends up like falling on the ground and dying.
Yeah.
And Julia's character just kind of looks and like, look, a bird. What? simple lines like that are just like the weirdest thing. It's like we don't really care about the characters because we don't know anything about them. Like I didn't know anything about Julia's character going into this. I knew that she likes to kiss her boyfriend and likes wearing his shirts. That's about it.
So basically, I mean, it's obviously they couldn't get Naomi Watts back for this.
I think
the kid's probably like an adult by now.
I think she might have been in the opening.
Okay.
I think there's some character they kill off in the opening in that airplane scene. It's very brief.
Yeah.
Because like it's very, I'm not sure it's Naomi Watts, but there's like some other character who says like, I have to stop this because she's familiar with it.
Yeah.
And of course, like this film is like dated too because you're thinking like, oh well, if it were supposed to be modern, wouldn't it be like viral? Wouldn't it be like an internet video?
It would have been YouTube.
Yeah, wouldn't it be on YouTube? Sequel. That's where it ends. It ends with them sending it to everyone on your email list.
Do people send a whole lot of videos email-wise? And whenever I send a YouTube video, people just kind of ignore it, I think.
Well, either...
I assume they do because they don't respond.
Well, I'm not sure what he was sending. That maybe
Maybe that's just me.
Maybe the ghost uploaded it to YouTube and sent the links.
So, like, this kid that's been long dead, she finds a way to learn technology and have access to the internet because,
It's my social marketing plan for killing people.
Didn't the character die in the 1970s in the movies?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think this one was trying to make like a little closer to the era.
Actually,
a little bit more.
She might have died even further back in the story. I don't know. The clothing that they're wearing when they flash back looks like the 1800s almost, but it's clearly not because of Sissy Spacek's character.
Yeah. Well, I think this one is like, it's hard to tell because it's a rural community, but I think probably, I don't know, like 60s, 70s, because some of the people who knew her are still alive, and they still talk about her, and there's a priest who talks about her.
In the first one?
No, in the new one.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be like 60s or 70s. Anyway, we should move on from from Rings.
Yes.
I keep wanting to say The Rings, because it was The Rings.
The Lord of the Rings.
The Rings.
So that was number 5. Number 4 on the list of the worst of the year is Baywatch. Baywatch.
Well, you didn't want to watch a whole movie of boobs bouncing and I
wish.
Hasselhoff in there?
Of course he is. What's this again?
I mean, he should be, but I didn't see the movie. I know The Rock was in there.
Yeah. Well, there's...
But his boobs aren't going to bounce running down that thing.
Well, there's not a lot of boobs. There's plenty of dicks. If you want dicks, there's dicks in the movie.
But I feel like the original crowd that watched Baywatch didn't watch it for dicks.
No.
They watched it for Pamela Anderson's breasts and... Was there someone else, Carmen something?
Yeah.
Yeah, her
So the drama of it.
It was about boobs, I thought.
And the corniness of it.
That's what I thought when I watched it. I was probably like 6. I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 8, I think.
Yep.
When I saw any part of that show, which it was a boring show.
Yeah.
But all I remember about it is them running on a beach.
I don't know, Baywatch Nights was pretty fun. Because it turned into the X-Files.
I'm not familiar with that, but okay.
It's a spin-off where David Hasselhoff goes solve mysteries.
I thought that was called Knight Rider.
No, because he had a car in that one. This one, he's fighting aliens.
Is he still wearing like a swimsuit?
You might be.
So Empress Pookies thought Rings was okay, but really, really, really didn't like Baywatch.
Yeah, and the problem with Baywatch is it can't decide what it's trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't know if it's trying to be a parody of the show. It doesn't know if it's trying to be a dude bro comedy. It doesn't know if it's trying to be a legitimate like lifeguard film, and it doesn't know if it's trying to be a crime caper, because it's got all these elements in the film and never chooses any of them and never chooses a tone that you're just kind of like, what is this film trying to do?
Do you remember the Reno 911? Was it a special or was it a movie?
There was a movie, yeah.
Okay, you remember that movie? So that's what they should have gone the direction with Baywatch.
Yes.
It's just making fun of the characters and stuff.
But I think that's the problem, is like, because Baywatch did a good job making fun of itself. They even made a whole show called...
Well, I mean, honestly, they shouldn't have made a movie.
Yeah, and I mean,
obviously.
They already made a parody of it at the time called Son of the Beach. Baywatch has been reaped for all the comedy it can possibly have. There's no reason to dig it up.
Well, yeah.
Like, I mean, even, like, they have Dwayne Johnson here, and Dwayne Johnson's, like, life support. Like, if he can't save this film, no one can. And even he's kind of like, I don't want to be here. Like, he's written out of the film at one point just because he doesn't want to be in this.
If they were going to make the Baywatch movie, they should just have all the original cast, except for some reason they're still lifeguards, but they're old, and they're like, why are we still doing this? And... also have it jokey, but then maybe they're trying to find, I don't know. I'm not a writer.
Well,
you're a writer.
Well, even, like, if you're doing, like, some, like, a passing of the torch type thing.
Yeah.
That would be good. It seems like they kind of went it past that film because, like, Dwayne Johnson's supposed to be the new Mitch Buchanan, and there's a point where David Hasselhoff visits him, and it kind of feels like he was, like, the previous Mitch, saying, like, what are you doing? You gotta get back out on the beach. And the thing is, like, the film, like, it contradicts itself constantly because, like, Dwayne Johnson's character is constantly saying to Zac Efron, who's this, like, trainee lifeguard, saying, like, if you want to be here, you got to be serious about it. You got to be willing to save lives, not be a showboat. Mm-hmm. And he demonstrates this when there's an accident that happens at a boat, and he makes, like, an actual daring rescue. Mm-hmm. It's like, you got to be committed to this. But then later when they discovered that there's this kind of, like, drug murder mafia ring going on, they literally abandoned their posts as lifeguards to go investigate this stuff. And the mayor and cops are questioning, like, it's like, you shouldn't be investigating this. Like, you're not cops. Why aren't you...
You're
lifeguards.
Lifeguards, you're just supposed to pull people out of the water.
And say, like, no, we're so much more. It's like, no, you should be out there. And it's like, you side with the cranky cops. Because, like, yes, you should be out there saving lives. What are you doing out here?
Sorry, I'm distracted. The cat's walking around.
Ew.
Come here, kitty.
Hey, get. Come here. And yeah, like I said, it's fairly gross at certain points. Like when I say, like, they show dicks, one of them is a corpse.
I don't want to see corpse dick.
There's a corpse dick at one point, and, like, Dwayne Johnson uses it to make a joke, saying, like, "Oh, Zac Efron, we gotta look for clues. Look under the balls. Look under the balls." While he does it, Dwayne Johnson's taking photos of it, saying, like, "Oh yeah, this guy died. It was tragic." Yeah. What the hell is this film doing?
I think that's a good reason not to like it, Pookie.
Yeah.
Corpse dick.
Yeah. It's like, and there's no reason to like, because, like, the character arcs are fairly boring. There's romance in there that's forced that you never buy it. Especially there's a tubby, nerdy guy who, he's likable, he's charming, and he's trying to get, like, this beautiful blonde to be his girlfriend. And he's thinking, like, oh, he's going to have to work as lifeguard to get up there and, like, impress this girl. The thing is, and they make it clear very on, this girl already likes him. She already loves this dude. She already thinks he's cute and that he likes him and that they're kind of going to be a couple. So it's like, well, what's there for him to fight for? There's no point to him keep going on lifeguard. He's got this girl in the bag.
How do these bad writers keep getting gigs?
This is a mess. It's a mess, especially with the opening where they have Dwayne Johnson saving someone and they have, like, dolphins doing flips in the background while the title comes up. It's like, pick a film. Pick one.
Pick a tone. Next
movie, number 3 of the worst films of the year is Transformers: The Last Knight.
I didn't even realize a Transformer movie came out this year.
Oh, it did.
I must live under a rock. This is a rock?
That's a beautiful rock. That's a beautiful rock. That's this one.
Can I live under the rock? Oh, no, I'm kidding.
You brought that one out just to jive.
I had to go there.
Ooh, I don't want to live under the rock. Where do I begin with this film? I mean, to be fair, yes, this is not the worst Transformers film. It wasn't as bad as Age of Extinction, where Mark Wahlberg's character has to deal with this older guy dating his daughter who he should have punched out, but he doesn't for some reason. It's better with, like, its little Budweiser insertion, but it's still a mess. There's no reason to care for the Autobots. They're destructive. They have no personalities. They're horribly mean to each other. They don't give a crap about humanity until there's some other robot fighting them. The humans are still hunting down Transformers, even though some of them they're protecting, but for some reason they don't kill the Decepticons. Mm-hmm. And the only reason they don't kill the Decepticons is so they can break them out of jail for, no joke, a Suicide Squad type force they can have of Decepticons. Which, that arc goes nowhere out of like the 15 other arcs going on here. Because there's also a whole deal with Merlin's sword, or Merlin's like wander type thing.
Merlin? Where does Merlin come into Transformers?
So apparently, in this world, Merlin didn't actually have magic. He was just using the power of the Transformers. And so the sword he gave to King Arthur is actually some Cybertronian staff or whatever.
What?
That wields power. And so for like all these years, they've tried to keep the Transformers secret. Through the secret society of like the Knights of whatever. So there's all these Transformer Knights that have been just kind of not talked about. And there's this whole secret history they kind of throw out there, like Bumblebee fought Nazis and they worked with Frederick Douglass and all this other... They drag all this crap and they're like, when the hell did all this happen?
I don't pretend to have ever really liked Transformers, so
no.
I see the movie as a nostalgia cash grab for a show that I wasn't that interested in. So
and yeah, like I've tried to go back and watch that show. I've tried to, but I never got into it.
Yeah, no. Of all the cash grab movies and toy based franchises, Transformers was the one that I had zero interest in. So
yeah, well, especially when you figure out like the whole bit is that there's Cybertronian crap buried on Earth, and just like that the Transformers have to have a war on Earth, and then they just bring in all these elements that don't make sense. Like Optimus Prime goes to Cybertron. Turns out Cybertron is controlled by some person who's going to bring Cybertron to Earth for some reason. Optimus Prime turns evil at one point, which, given what he does in all these other films, it's not that much of a surprise because he's always doing these stupid things where he's like, oh, always fight with honor. And then he'll cut someone up the back, or he'll shoot a Transformer's face off. So it's like, oh, he's betrayed us. Like, oh, yeah, that's great. All the humans like, yeah, welcome to our world. Yeah. And like even like these films are like an endurance test now, because like a lot of Transformers fans are gonna try to defend it type stuff, like, oh, at least it brought these parts in here. There's a part where they bring in, of all things, they bring in the whole deal with Unicron, which for some reason I don't know why Unicron's like a big deal to these fans, because he's in the Transformers film. He's like the biggest Transformer ever. They bring him up, they address him, and then kind of don't talk about the fact that he's basically living inside the Earth. And they just leave that plot thread hanging. So it's like, are you really going to keep defending Michael Bay when he keeps on bringing in all these ridiculous plots and then even leaves the more interesting ones that you want on the shelf? It's like, how long are you going to keep defending these films? Because they're just going to keep going because they just keep making money. And especially, like, there's so much stuff that tires me out about these films. Like, the whole thing with, like, the sound design.
I have to let the dog out, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm just going to rant more.
Okay, you rant. Go for it.
So the sound design, like, I really hated how much, like, of course, they turn it up to 11. So they get the whole theater just shaking so loud to try to pierce your eardrums as much as you can. And it's just like, you don't want to be here. And I was thinking about this because, like, they had the same level of volume with Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. But I like Dunkirk because it emphasized, how much it sucked to be on the beach when bombers were after you. Like, it sounds loud and ear-piercing and horrible. You don't want to be there. But Transformers is supposed to be like this fun action sci-fi adventure where you're supposed to get into it and you want to be there, but you're like, no, this is blaring. I don't want to be here. A lot of these scenes, like I said, like a lot of my complaints here are the same complaints about every Transformers film. It's cluttered, none of the jokes hit, especially when you have Anthony Hopkins as the leader of like the last knights of the Transformers, and he's just like blabbering. He's either blabbering in Britishisms, or he's saying like, oh, chip chip cheerio, yeah, fish and chips and all that, or he's saying stuff like, oh, bitch stuff off, or like, I'm not your dude, and stuff like that. It's like, Hopkins deserves so much better than this. And especially, like, there's a ridiculous scene where he walks up to, like, Stonehenge and ends up, like, shooting a gun at Megatron. It's like, yeah, it's the same guy from Silence of the Lambs, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it frustrated me. It's like, yeah, it's not as bad as the other films, but at the same time, I don't want these films to keep going. I don't want this. I don't want to get used to the Transformers films because you shouldn't have to settle for this cluttered mess of a film.
No.
No. Also, one of the worst posters of the year. Like, I don't think I put the poster up there, but if you've ever seen it, it's like the most hack job Photoshop you've ever seen. Okay. So number 2 on the list of the worst films of the year, and I think I might have told you about this one. This is Fist Fight.
Is that the one with the teachers or something?
Yes.
Gosh, that was this year? Wow, the year goes by so fast. It's like
You'll notice.
I don't even remember. I don't remember the things from the beginning of the year.
You'll notice a
They look
trend
awful,
that
though.
a lot of these terrible films came out earlier in the year, which is when they dumped them.
Really?
And this was, I believe, a February release. I think it was set up for January, but I think it came out around February this time. But yeah, for those who haven't seen the film, it's Charlie Day playing this teacher, just trying to keep his head down, just trying to keep his job so that he can support his expectant wife and his little girl who's trying to do right by her. And then there's Ice Cube's character who just hates students, hates them all, thinks they're just the worst students ever. And to his credit, the students here go way too far. Like it's the last day of school, they're pulling these horrible senior pranks of making, I think their worst one is they make a donkey drag a teacher through the halls that they put meth in the donkey, apparently.
How are these students not in prison? Jeez.
Exactly. And there's a lot of stuff here that you start questioning, like, well, why is this happening? Because apparently, like, at one point, Charlie Day rats out Ice Cube because he broke like a television or something because some student was messing with it. And then so, like, Ice Cube's like, well, screw that. You and I are going to fight after school. And this somehow becomes not just the talk of the school, it becomes the talk of the town. Like, it gets advertised everywhere saying, oh, teachers are going to fight. They're gonna punch each other after school. It's like, why does everyone care about this? Why is this happening? And the thing is, like, and everyone seems to be against Charlie Day, and he's done nothing to deserve this. Like, they try to phrase it since, like, oh, he's got to gain some backbone and stick up for himself by fighting a teacher after school. Like, I don't get this.
Sounds contrary to most
and all these
schools' policies in general.
And all these characters are just spiteful and hateful, like, towards Charlie Day. They all spit on him and think he's the worst and mock him, and he's just trying to keep his job. And of course, like they say, like, oh, he gains a backbone by sinking to their level, by basically saying, fuck you to teachers, fuck you to students, beating people up, threatening students, running out of the school, swearing at little kids. This is supposed to build him up as, like, the man he's supposed to be by the end of the film. And I really hate the message that the film tries to force in at the end, where it says, like, oh, because the teachers fought outside, that proves that we got to invest more money in the school. So a fight between teachers is supposed to save the day here. And it apparently saves it, like, really quick here. Like, immediately after the fight, they emphasize the fact that, like, oh, teachers are fighting, and Ice Cube's kind of like, my work here is done. Like, what? Like, look, if you just want to have just, like, a raunchy, violent comedy about, teachers who fight each other, okay, that's one thing. But to force in some, like, moral message about sticking up for yourself or stressing how, schools are underfunded and stuff like that, no. This film does not earn those points. It doesn't work for that. It doesn't work for its characters. It doesn't work for its gags. There's a scene where Charlie Day literally has to say fuck like 10 times within 10 seconds. As fast as he can.
Why?
Because fuck is funny. And that's a... Well, if you're desperate for comedy. I've noticed a lot of these comedies and stuff like Observe and Report and all these type of films where if they can't find a joke, if they're improvising and they get lost, just say fuck as many times as you can, as fast as you can. And that will be comedy, I guess.
I don't know why that would be funny. I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, it's... Yeah, like... It's like that word should be like an explanation to make something funnier. It shouldn't just be the joke, but that is just the joke half the time. And Especially like it broke my heart to see like Ice Cube stating more like NWA quotes in this. Like at one point they question him and like his response is like, "Oh, fuck the police." It's like,
really?
We're really gonna go? Okay, we're gonna go down that route.
No, it's
we're lazy. Yeah, it's that lazy. Especially one of the other things that baffle me is like, well, Tracy Morgan is here and he does the usual Tracy Morgan thing. Christina Hendricks is here. You might remember from Mad Men.
Yeah.
And she's probably the worst teacher of all.
What subject does she teach?
I think she teaches French.
Okay.
And her whole deal is she thinks that Charlie Day might have been having sex with one of the students in the bathroom through a misunderstanding. And she essentially goes to this point where she say like, "Oh, I'll kill him. I'll cut off his balls." Like there's a point where she offers to another teacher, like she brings out a knife saying like, "I'll cut off his balls. I'll fucking kill him. I will kill him so bad." It's like, what? Especially like if this film is trying to be really raunchy in the fact that that Christina Hendricks, she's dressing very conservatively in this film too. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know. I found that odd. Like in this film, she's gonna dress conservatively like that, and she's gonna be the most batshit insane character in this. I mean, across the board, there's no one to like here. Even tertiary characters are always questioning and spitting on Charlie Day. There's like, unless you really like seeing Charlie Day sputter out of control and see everyone punch down on him, there's no reason to watch this film.
People don't tend to like punching down.
No.
I don't really like to see movies where people just get shit on the whole way through either.
And yeah,
I don't like things that I cringe too much during. I don't know.
It's very cringeworthy.
I guess I must just not like watching things because it seems like everything that comes out is lacking. So.
Well, this is the worst of the year. We'll get to the best of the year, and then we'll end on a high note with this.
Yeah, that'll make me feel better about things.
So, number one for the worst films of the year, and this should be no surprise to anyone, it's the Emoji Movie.
Yeah, if anyone's surprised by that, then they've not been paying attention to the blockbusters this year. Yeah,
I mean, does this even need, like, explanation? Like, I mean, we did not get, like, I had to go look at this on my own because we didn't get, like, a press screening for this. Because Sony, like, it's clearly, like, Sony's in kamikaze mode right now. They really are with this film. This is... They're blatant about their commercialism. They don't care. It's, it's an ad for Candy Crush. It's an ad for other applications they have going through here. The characters are, the emoticons they have here are bland. It's just like, the emoticon, like, round faces and then just these kind of, like, gangly limbs make no sense. It's the blasé typical story of like, I gotta go on an adventure, I gotta save the phone, even though it doesn't make any sense in this context. And like, again, like, same thing with Fist Fight. There is not a single character to like here. Nobody. Not even like, I thought maybe Patrick Stewart as the talking piece of poop. Maybe there could be something funny here. There's nothing.
So, this is the movie that what's his face who voices the lead
T.J. Miller
was trying to defend, and
yeah,
his career's probably going down the toilet for other reasons, but this probably isn't helping him.
Yeah, I tweeted about that. It's like you chose this of all hills to die on. One of the worst. Like, I know it's your starring role.
Full Jamie Kennedy, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy after The Mask, Son of the Mask, complaining that no one liked it, which I actually did see that steaming pile of garbage in theaters, and I took my much younger brother to it, and it was waste of the discount theater money I paid for it.
Yeah.
I probably paid $6, if that, total to see that movie, and that was $6 too much. So, to see it with my brother. I paid... Yeah, it was not worth it. Also, the second Garfield movie. I think he enjoyed it, but he was a lot younger, so let's not insult him by pretending he'd like it now.
We'll keep him off. And I mean, like, it's I mean, this has been like a lackluster year for animated films. So the bar was already pretty low, and after after like stuff like the Baby Boss, stuff like that, like, okay, well, pretty low, but I don't think it get any lower. Emoji Movie, this is ground zero. This is like, like Sony's, when they did the Angry Birds movie, it wasn't great. Like, there was some hope there, like, to kind of show that they had some idea what they want to do with this commercial property. They have no idea what they're doing with the Emoji Movie. It's kind of like, when they made like Tron in 1982, and back then, when you were back in 1982, everything in that film kind of sounded like gobbledygook. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't quite understand like how any of this worked, what all these computer terms meant. Mm-hmm. But this is like the opposite of that. This is where the screenwriters literally wrote gobbledygook and think that you'll pick up on that, or you won't question it much. But the thing is, like, people aren't stupid about apps and their phones now. They're going to see through this bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the worst of it, 'cause it's just capitalizing on the most blatant commercialism possible.
One question.
Yeah.
Did Boss Baby come out this year or last year?
This year.
It did come out this year?
Yes. Came out around March, I believe. Yep.
Was that on your list?
It's not on the list for the worst of the year, cause like I said, it's
somewhat watchable, but
the character's a funny idea, but like I said, it's based on a short story that really didn't need to be blown up into a film.
I read the short story. It is a baby board book.
Yeah.
So.
It did not need to be expanded there. Yeah. I like the idea of Alec Baldwin voicing a baby in a suit. It's a funny idea.
It's cute for a short.
It's like I've said, it's a great idea for like a Looney Tunes short.
Yeah.
But for like a whole film with like the whole baby empire and
it raised more questions than it answered.
Yes.
There's a lot of questions in that.
It wove itself into a corner.
The kid liked it, but kids will like a lot of
kids
things.
like it.
There's only a couple movies she's ever said she didn't like, so.
Well, even when I brought her out of that, she was kind of lukewarm on the Baby Boss. She's kind of
really?
oh, well, I liked it, but
then why does she keep making me watch it?
Because it's there. Because it's there. That's the reason they watch all these films. So yeah, those are the worst films of the year. So now we can move on to the best films of 2017.
Yay!
Ones that are better. So number 10 is what people have been calling the best reviewed film of the year, Lady Bird.
I still need to see that one. I do want to see that one.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I noticed this about a lot of the films I put on this list, though. A lot of these films have the same writer and director working on them. So you had Greta Gerwig was working on this film about, it's a coming-of-age teenage girl type story. She's a Catholic girl. She's trying to like get out of, of California. She wants to go to New York. She wants to go to colleges. But her family's poor and they can't quite do it, so she's trying to go behind their back to try to make it work. At the same time, it's one of those things where you're trying to find yourself in high school. Like, she knows what she likes. She has her friend that, they're not popular, but, they get along. And, but then she starts seeing, like, oh, there's cool kids in school. I want to be involved with the cool kids. And there's this really hot guy. I want to be involved with the hot guy. And I want to apply to this college, and I want this type of job. And then she realized, well, I probably shouldn't abandon people or shove people to the side. And she has to learn it the hard way, obviously.
But you said she wanted to escape California, somewhere that people usually run off to New York.
Yeah.
That seems... I guess the grass is always greener then, huh?
Well, she stresses kind of like where she's living. It's kind of like a boring kind of upscale place in California. Like it's not like Los Angeles or something like that. It's kind of
sounds like it's probably somewhere she's not going to be able to afford to live after she leaves her parents.
Yeah,
that's how it usually works, right?
Yeah, so she does a lot of stuff behind people's back. She lies, and like it comes back to bite her in the butt, but just biting her just enough so that she learns and she can eventually move on. Because it keeps building. She keeps learning from her mistakes, so that by the time we get to the end, there's kind of this like contentment with herself about where she wants to be in the world when she finally gets off to college.
Huh. I'm still looking for that.
A lot of people are. And I think that's so great about the film is like, and again, like, there's a lot of these beats you kind of expect with a coming of age film. Mm-hmm. But I love how quick this film is with editing. Within its 90 minutes, it doesn't waste its time. Like I told you about like that scene where, you know, on her 18th birthday, she decides, oh, I want to celebrate, so, you know, alone, I'm gonna go to the gas station and I'm gonna buy a porno mag and some cigarettes. And she goes there, she buys it, like, oh, it's my 18th birthday, and the store clerk's like, oh, happy birthday. And she goes outside, she smokes a cigarette beside the building and reads some porno. And then it happens within like just 30 seconds. It's like, great, that's the point in her life. Great, click it, and then go to the next one. Like, and they skirt through most of her life like that. Like, she does some weird stuff on Thanksgiving, hanging out with people. She does some weird stuff for her prom, where she's hanging out with kind of the wrong crowd. And we just get just the important parts of drama here. It feels like all the fat's been trimmed off this type of story. And there's a lot of likable characters here. I mean, I know I'm going to say her name wrong here, but Saoirse Ronan, who's playing Lady Bird here, she's really great. She's got a lot of spirit to her. Like, one of her best moments is there's a moment where they're having a lecture about abortions in school. And she's kind of like muttering under her breath, and the instructor saying like, "Oh, do you have something to say?" It's like, I'm saying, you know, if they made abortions legal, then, you know, your mom would, you know, you wouldn't have to be here talking to us. Like,
ooh, burn.
She makes some pretty wicked burns here.
Well, I was being a little sarcastic there, though.
Well, the whole, you know, she offends the teacher, and all the students are kind of like, oh shit, she really said that, didn't she?
That's mean.
She is being mean, but
sometimes it's interesting to watch characters that are mean.
Yeah, well, she's mean, but she's not like consistently mean. You know, there's points where she wants to shut people out. She's just like, I don't want to deal with this. But eventually, you know, even like the nun who's running like the Catholic school realized that, you know, you're not such a bad person. You know, you do pay attention to a lot of stuff that most people wouldn't. You do show general love to people, even if it seems like you're kind of being a little cackling and little, like, you know, snarky with some of your comments.
She's a three-dimensional character. That's important. We all have flaws, and movie characters should too. So.
Yeah. And every character feels like they have some more to their dimension here. Like, especially their drama teacher feels like he has a lot more dimension to him. Because it feels like a nothing role. Like, it's played by, I forget his name, but he was in Fences. And he plays this kind of character who seems like he has a lot going on. Like, he starts up drama classes like, we're going to play a game to see who can cry first. So think of the saddest thing you can and then try to cry. And he immediately wins first. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, oh man, there's something going on there. And you can tell, like, you can kind of see the depression build in him. Like, after they have their big show, like, he's just sitting out in the hallway, sitting next to some other student. And he just, like, mutters to him, it's like, they didn't get it.
Oh.
It's like, man, it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, like, because you see, like, he's jovial some of the times, but he's got some other stuff he's working through.
Well, some people can hide their pain. So what's movie number 2?
Well, that was movie number 10. We're going up the list here.
Going backwards. All right, movie number 9.
Movie number 9 is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. Mainly just because it's such an unconventional war film. Yeah. Like, a lot of people's biggest complaint about Dunkirk is that, well, there's not really much character. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't get to learn much of the backstories of the characters. We don't even get to learn their names. They're not talking about, you know, stuff they missed from home or emotional stuff from that. Fine by me. Cut it, because, like, Nolan is kind of like, let's just cut out the fat. I want to make a film about the war experience, what it's like for these soldiers trying to escape Dunkirk and the people trying to help them off there. I wanted to make it just about that. Not about, like, you know, extra backstories about, you know, oh, I got to get home. I got a girl back home. Oh, it's, you know, I'm this old, you know, I just, like, one more day, just type of stuff. It's like, yeah, we've heard all that stuff before.
You know, it's interesting that this movie Dunkirk came out, and then the one I watched with you was related to
The Darkest Hour.
Dunkirk, and it's just kind of like, oh, it's the Dunkirk cinematic universe.
Yeah, it is the perfect double feature for this year. Like, I would actually for number 9, I'm not going to change it, but I would say, yes, do watch Dunkirk and The Darkest Hour in the same time, in the same frame. Like, make it a double feature. Because, like, with Dunkirk, you see the entire war that's going on, and then with Darkest Hour, you see all the stuff happening behind the scenes with Winston Churchill during the war. Mm-hmm. So for those people who are complaining, like, oh, The Darkest Hour didn't really focus so much on the war, well, guess what? There's another film that came out this year that focuses all about the war. and not with any like little asides or anything. Like you get involved with it. You get involved with the three campaigns of the one soldier who's trying to get off the island, who can't quite, who's trying to like lie and try to, and like he knows, like he gets on board a boat and he knows it'll probably be bombed. So I'm going to be on the top while everyone else is down below, getting food and blankets and everything. And I'm going to make my escape quick because I know this thing will probably be bombed.
Ooh.
And so there's this questioning of his morality because he is kind of lying. Because at one point they do discover an extra boat on the island and they kind of lie to everyone. They don't tell anyone about it. And so that's one campaign. The other campaign is, Mark Rylance playing this yacht owner who's getting involved in the campaign to bring over all these extra boats to get the people out of Dunkirk. And he picks up one soldier who's saying like, no, I'm not going back. But it's like, Mark Ryan's like, no, we got to go back. And so he makes the calculated decision about braving these waters where boats are getting shot down and bombers are overhead. So there's a great hero story there. And then you have the air campaign where you have Tom Hardy flying in this squadron that gets whittled down to one. Where he has to, be the one to save the day, to like take out the bomber or to take out the ship to make sure that everyone can be safe. So he makes a fairly big sacrifice towards the end of the film. And I love how it cuts in between these different campaigns and they take places over different amounts of time. Like I think like the Soldiers on the Beach campaign takes place over a few days. The campaign with Mark Rylance's character takes place over a few hours, and the campaign with Tom Hardy trying to save everyone takes place over a few minutes. So you have all this cutting back in time, and you're so involved with it that you don't even notice some of the actors at some points. Like you kind of lose Tom Hardy because he's mostly just talking about his tactics, about where to go in the war, what he's going to do next. Like, if his gauge is busted, what's he going to do? You don't even notice like certain characters who are far in the background, kind of like Michael Caine is in here as the operator over the radio. But because it's like distorted in the radio, you're not quite sure unless you're paying really close attention. You don't know that it's Michael Caine. And like Cillian Murphy plays the shivering soldier who Mark Rylance picks up. We don't know much about him other than that he doesn't want to go back to Dunkirk and he's terrified. So there's a lot of roles for very kind of nothing characters here in terms of their names and their backstory, but you do get a lot of the war experience. And I mentioned this with Transformers, is that the sound design on this is probably going to win like Oscars for sound design or sound editing, because it's loud. Like when the bombers come overhead to bomb the soldiers, it's ear-splittingly loud. Like it feels terrifying that these bombers are coming to like blow these people out of the water. And it's like you don't want to be there. Like it sounds horrible. And I compare that with like Transformers, which had the same level of volume, where you don't want to be there. It's supposed to be fun, but you don't want to be there. And Dunkirk's more effective because it stresses how much it sucked to be stuck on this beach when you're being bombed from overhead. And I love how it ties together at the end, especially when the one like kind of deceptive soldier gets to land and they give him a blanket and some food and they said, oh, like thank you for coming back, like thank you so much. And the soldier says, like, what do you need to thank me for? Like, all I did was survive. And they're just like, well, that's enough. And it kind of got me there. And like for as much as they don't focus on the dialogue and character here, that's a great. It's not the last line, but it's a good line to go out on.
Sounds like a decent war movie.
It's very, like, I've never seen a war film quite like this that stresses more the experience than anything else. Like more than just like a character drama of like characters we've seen before. Nolan realized that he knows what he's good at, and he does it here greatly. I think it's one of his best films in quite a long time. So that's number 9 with Dunkirk. Number 8, we have Jordan Peele's Get Out. Get out. This was a very surprising film. Like, this is going to be on a lot of people's list just because it's a lot like John Carpenter's They Live, where it takes like a very weird concept but weaves it in with the social commentary of the time. Like, not to reveal, like, I guess I have to reveal too much if I talk about it, but like the villains of this film are sort of these rich white people who like to think that they're very progressive. Like we voted for Obama. Like they stress this a lot, and even because this character of Chris, who's a photographer, is a black guy played by David Kaluuya, I think his name is said. He comes home to his white girlfriend's wealthy family, and she warns him like, look, my parents are kind of square, they're going to stress to you, oh, we voted for Obama, they're those type of people.
Well, she warned him.
And she warned him, and he kind of said like, yeah, okay, you voted for Obama, okay. Because they're trying to seem like...
A lot of people voted for Obama.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like, they're trying to seem like they're cool with black people. But there's little clues that go on here about what's really happening. Because at one point, they start showing off the fact that, my great-grandfather raced in, like, the Olympics or something like that. And he was beaten by a black guy. It was like, but it's okay. Black guy was pretty good. Yeah. And the more that he starts realizing, like, there are black servants there. And he thinks like, oh, that's kind of weird. He's like, I know what it looks like, but they were my grandparents' indentured servants,
servants,
or whatever you want to call it, like the people they pay to clean the house and stuff like that.
They're servants. Indentured servants means something completely.
Is it okay? I screwed up that term then. So yeah, essentially they're. The help there is like, well, they were here, and like rather than throw them out, we decided we'd keep them there. But he realizes there's something weird going on with them. They don't act like normal people, and mainly he's kind of confused because it seems like they don't act quite like. Essentially, in his mind, it seems like they don't act like black people, and it turns out he's not too far off there. Like there is something weird going on here, and when you eventually find out, it's eventually this whole deal with not being comfortable with identity. And trying, like, it gets into this weird idea of like brain surgery and switching and this psychological thing of like taking you out of your body type thing.
This is what Rachel Dolezal is after.
It is something like that. Because like I don't know if it would ruin it, but like essentially it involves like white people essentially wanting to be black people.
Yeah, we'll get at that though. Don't spoil it any further.
Okay, I will say there is a really great part with Stephen Root's character where he firmly hits the nail on the head. This theme about this being conflicted with your own identity and sort of the racism that kind of brews with it, and it weaves it pretty well for what essentially turns into a horror film towards the end of the film. So it's very creative, and it's no surprise at all that Jordan Peele's picked to helm the next Twilight Zone series. Because this feels like something.
Makes sense.
Because this
is a very funny man, though, too. So.
Well, he's funny, and he's also very insightful too. Like this film, like it's horrific and it's terrifying at times, but it's also incredibly hilarious at points.
Yeah. Well, Key and Peele is a good show.
Yeah. So yeah, he does a really good job. It's a surprising recovery from something like Keanu, which is just kind of like it's a funny concept,
but absurd.
But it was absurd. Didn't really go anywhere. Get Out feels like it has a purpose. It has an identity. It has some fun with it, and it has its own little weird style to it. Like you're never gonna look at like Teacups the same way again after this film.
I'm not sure I want to know.
It's great. So I can't wait for him to do Twilight Zone, do more crazy tales like that.
All right.
All right. So number 7.
Just a quick interjection.
Can
I turn these like? Do you have to have the movie posters up, or do you want them off?
No, you can leave them on. It's just going to be like a little ident there.
Sure.
So number 7 is the third film in the best genre trilogy of the decade, War for the Planet of the Apes.
That's like your opinion, man.
I know you don't dig the ape films.
I liked the original ones.
All of them?
The first 2.
First 2. Okay. Well, this one has that credit over it. Like all 3 of these films, like I think have just been stellar with developing the whole ape mythology. Because I mean, yeah, like it sounds like Planet of the Apes is silly, but director.
I like silly, so that's where I'm at.
But if you're gonna take it in a serious direction, Matt Reeves, he has a plan here. Like director Matt Reeves, he knows what he wants to do with the story. He knows how to make it emotional, make you give a shit about CGI apes trying to fight for their survival here. Because especially like because after like was it like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, they had like kind of like a like the human story and the ape story. There's Caesar, who's the main ape, is trying to keep his colony of apes, like the intelligent apes, off to the side, away from humans, and just live in peace. But then there's the bad ape, Koba, who says like we got to go after humans and kill them all. And then there's the human side, and there's a bunch of humans saying we just want to live in peace, want to be over here. And then there's Gary Oldman's character says, well, the smart ape disease or whatever killed off my son, so we got to go kill all the apes. So you have those two conflicting forces. And here with War of the Planet of the Apes, it's all about the apes now. Because the humans here, like, there's one, like, crazy colonel played by Woody Harrelson, who's basically been abandoned by, like, all the military, saying, like, we don't want anything to do with them, and he's basically resorted to torturing apes, finding them, hunting them down, killing them, and he's just gone nuts. And they kind of reveal, like, this is kind of when humanity is on its last legs, when they're about to pass out. Because they stress how the disease has kind of affected the colonel's mind, and it eventually gets to a point where he can barely even speak. Like it's killing him off slowly.
Well, no spoilers, because Forgotten Shadows says they've been watching more movies lately, though nothing from this year.
Well, I won't spoil too much. I'll just say that Andy Serkis does an amazing job as Caesar here, especially because there's so much faith in these special effects that we spend so much time with the apes that we get to like them as characters. We're not just marveling at the special effects now. Now we're engrossed in them. We care about these characters. We care about like the character of like Maurice, the orangutan who's still speaking with sign language, but he's still kind of the moral support for Caesar, saying like, like at one point they find a human child and they say, we can't just leave the child here. She'll die. We can't be like those a-hole humans. We still got to have our morality here because Caesar is kind of bound by a little bit more revenge this time. Like he's always been this bold leader, but he's still kind of haunted by Koba, who's like had this force still in his mind saying, you have to kill off all the humans or guess what? Your race is done. You're going to doom everyone to death.
Forgotten Shadows wants to know if you've seen the movie Let's Be Evil. They watched it today and there's nothing online to explain the ending.
I haven't seen it, but I think it might be in my queue. I think it might be by a different title. I think that might be the title in the UK because I think there's another film called Let's Kill Our Friends. I think that might be the same film. I haven't seen that yet, though. I gotta check that out soon. I like the poster, though. Because it's got that... It's kind of a joke now. It's like if something's neon now, it's considered like aesthetically pleasing, and it's a brilliant cinema. So
it says on Netflix it's called Let's Be Evil. So
okay, all right. I don't think I've seen that yet. I'm gonna have to check that out though.
Did that just come out to Netflix?
Not that I've seen. I usually keep track of the stuff that comes out on Netflix. So not at least recently in my memory. It's not ringing a bell. But, yeah, I'll have to check that out. So, yeah, War of the Planet of the Apes, great way to cap off the trilogy. So, it's number 7. Number 6 is Blade Runner 2049. Ooh. Oh, my goodness. I already love Blade Runner. I think it's a classic here. And, we live in an age where we have, like, just sequels and remakes and reboots and soft reboots and what have you that just feel like they're cash grabs. Like, they don't have an idea here. But here... director Denis Villeneuve actually has a plan and an idea of where to go with Blade Runner here. This feels like a necessary sequel. Like I'd place it alongside Mad Max Fury Road as like a sequel that came back with a purpose, that has something to say, that has something to explore, that has something to add to Blade Runner here. Because they go into a lot more depth with making their own little history with Blade Runner, with expanding the universe and its technologies, what's further outside of Los Angeles from the towering skyscrapers, what happened to Deckard, what happened to the replicants. I don't want to spoil too much just because I've been used to not spoiling so much because this is one of the few films where when we were at the press screening, they give us a long list of spoilers that we can reveal.
Well, I wouldn't spoil it because I'm sure plenty of people have not seen it.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it. I will just say that, it's if not on par, it is better than the original Blade Runner because it does have a lot more character here. Ryan Gosling is... like Ryan Gosling is great for the role. Like most people like him already, but here I think he really fits the role of the cop who's trying to uncover this deal with like the new Tyrell in town, who's trying to breed the perfect replicants. And if you're familiar with Denis Villeneuve's other films, you know, stuff like Arrival and Sicario and Prisoners and Enemy, you know that, you know, he wants to make stuff that's going to be more thoughtful and more philosophical. I almost wish that he would have done Ghost in the Shell, just because I think he would have had more ideas for that film. But Blade Runner 29, it respects so much of the original. I mean, the music by Hans Zimmer is on par with Vangelis. That like, there's a lot. I love this music so much, and just everything from the visual effects here, like the stuff that CG looks great, the stuff that's actually practical looks really good.
So Forgotten Shadows wants to know. Says they're a person who enjoys a story that they can get emotionally attached and make them feel. Do you think they like the Blade Runner or not?
I think for getting emotionally attached, it does have a very sweet ending to it. It's like it's very dark, it's very violent. But it comes to a little bit of a less ambiguous ending from like Blade Runner, because I know a lot of people really didn't like that. Here it kind of feels like it comes to a very satisfying and emotional conclusion. It's very gritty, it's very violent, and it gets very dark at times with what Ryan Gosling's character discovers. But in the end, I think it comes together really well, and it has a very emotional moment where, you know, he starts to connect with Harrison Ford there.
Forgotten Shadow says, and I agree with this, is I think emotion is far more important than action. Action is important to keep people interested, but art makes you feel. They write tragedies and the dark stuff doesn't bother them.
Okay.
Yeah, I like, I myself prefer, you know, solid character development and plots and, you know, things that you can continue to think about, rather than the action. And I tend to feel like you prefer more action than
sometimes.
Story. I like story over action.
And there's some good action here, but there's a lot more focus, I think, on just trying to define the characters. You know, because, you know, if you watch Blade Runner, you're familiar with what they try to explore here of, you know, what it is to be human. You know, what it is that defines our morality, you know, all those big questions that you see in most hard science fiction here. And they do really, they explore a lot of it. And I think that's what I love so much about it. And there's also a bit of like a romance going on here. I'm not going to say much about how it happens, but there's a three-way between a replicant, a human, and a hologram.
Okay, well that's enough about Blade Runner. Before you just like tell everybody everything.
I'm just selling elements. I haven't revealed any of the story or character emotional elements.
Okay, good.
Just go see it. It's the best sci-fi film of the year, without question. It got dogged on at the box office because a lot of people thought it was too long, and it might run a little bit long in some points, but there wasn't a moment where I wasn't bored. I always felt involved with it, and by the time I left the theater, you know, it was like leaving another world, you know.
Right, so if you generally agree with Mark on movies, then go see Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Numbers.
2049.
2049.
All right, so number 5.
Just like a normal Tuesday. Yeah, that's great.
Number 5 is Mudbound. This is filmed, one of the Netflix films here that's actually being considered for Oscar nominations. And it's a sort of an ensemble period piece about what goes on in the Mississippi with these farmers who are struggling to make their land work. And two people, a white guy and a black guy, come back from World War II, where, you know, they find Mississippi's very different from when they were touring Europe, and they're not quite able to adjust. Like, let's see, Jason Clarke plays the white guy who comes back here, and he's struggling to, you know, because he has PTSD, so he can't quite, you know, function around other people, and, you know, with cars going off and everything. And then you have Jason Mitchell playing one of the black soldiers who was in a tank, and he comes back home after, he's been all around Europe, and he's had, women who loved him, and he could go any place he wanted, and he comes back to Mississippi where they're saying, you can't be here, you can't use the store, he finds himself that, there's less for him at home than there was back in Europe. And there's lots of other stuff, and it's not just like the World War II. There's also stuff like the farmers, trying to deal with, raising a farm, how it's tough out there, how disease is rampant, how, one misstep on a ladder can break your foot, and then you can be out for days, and then you have a problem with work, and then just getting paid, and then the racial tensions that are going on at the time. And there's so much to unpack here. But I love how much we get to explore every aspect of these characters, where they deliver these very, nice and poetic lines about what it's like living out here, and they're talking about, how much how tough it is to work in the fields, how much it stinks to keep walking through mud, and how much they, how tough it is to just brave it out there. So it's a very, very engrossing experience. All the actors here are amazing, especially there's a racist grandpa here played by Mike from Breaking Bad, who's really good. Like most people know, like Mike, the old guy with the trying to think of it, the old guy he works with at one point.
Yeah, there's someone with a question. So,
okay,
are you almost done? Is this a good time?
Yeah, but Mudbound's great. It's on Netflix right now, so you have no excuse to see it. Yeah. So what do we do?
Oh, Forgotten Shadows. They want to know if Death Note, the Netflix version, is on your list of reviews. As a fan of the original content, I absolutely hated it. Mm-hmm. From viewer's perspective and a writer's perspective.
Yeah, I didn't think it worked. It's, I mean, it was definitely one of the lesser films of the year. It wasn't on my worst, just because there were a lot of other ones that really boiled my blood. But, seeing a bad anime adaptation, I survived Ghost in the Shell. I survived, the live action version of Kite. It's bad, but it's not as bad as it could have been. So I'll just say that. Yeah, it doesn't do well by the material at all. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope, The Last Jedi has not been brought up yet. Stingy Jamal, I wanted to know.
No, it's not on the list of the best or the worst of the year. I will say that. So.
Well, there you go. It's thoroughly mediocre.
Isn't that on the list? I know it's making a lot of people's list, but that's mostly because just think, I can finally put Star Wars on my list. So, the best of the year.
Someone says they completely abandoned everything but the title.
For
The
Death
Last Jedi.
Over The Last Jedi.
Or is it for Death Note? I don't know which
one
you're talking about.
It works for both.
There you go.
It doesn't matter. It works for both. All right, so now we're getting to the higher numbers here. So number 4 for the best movies of the year is Logan.
Oh, sorry, I was laughing at Nope.
What do you say now?
Rest in peace, The Last Jedi movie's self-esteem. For the record,
Wonderful.
Mark actually liked it. He told me the spoilers because I begged for them, and I hated what he told me. So, was this a top 20 or a top 10? It's top 10 best and the top 10 worst. So.
Yep. And we'll go through a review at the end in case anyone's curious. Logan. What more can I say? It finally made me give a shit about Wolverine. A character who can constantly heal himself and always stab people with claws. Now he's at the twilight of his life. He's grizzled. He's had nothing to live for. All the mutants are pretty much gone. He's struggling to make Charles Xavier, not kill everyone with his psychic powers that are going nuts at this point. And it feels like a very different film from the other X-Men films, especially just because the whole Western aspect is great. You have Daphne Keane as Laura, who's probably the most badass female actor this year. I mean, because
she did a great job. I mean, I think there was a time when child actors were all garbage, but these days, well, I guess I can't remember her name in Paper Moon. She was wonderful, and that was old. But Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, she was badass. I mean, especially like because somebody made like a montage of like the most badass women of the year, and they had like Wonder Woman with the shield, and then Gamora with the guns from Guardians, and then they cut to Daphne and Keane where she takes off her backpack and she's getting her claws out and ready to kill. The thing I love about is like the scene that they cut to with her. It's like notice how badass and cool she is without like an outfit or shields on or anything. She has that look. She takes off that backpack and just like holy crap, something bad's gonna go down.
Yeah.
It is badass. And I love how they set up the whole setting of the future there. Like they don't emphasize that it's like like the future, towering skyscrapers and everything. It's just like there's self-driving trucks here. There's a little bit more advanced phones here. There's some like cybernetics with arm attachments there.
Water rights issues or something.
Yeah. Something like little stuff like that, and I love like how they also have fun with it by essentially shitting on the rest of the X-Men films, where he takes like that X-Men comic book, so like only about half the stuff's true, if that.
Yeah, and that's why Tamale, why he's not in the comic costume is because the comic exists in this universe, and he's like, this is all.
Yeah.
This isn't true.
None of it's true. So we're not doing the superhero thing. I love how, well, especially like we're in an age where we can have superhero films that can not just be superhero films. They can be other stuff. Like we have Guardians of the Galaxy. It can be a space opera. And now we have Logan, and it can be like a Western.
Yeah.
Like not even kind of like a mild Western. No,
it was definitely Western.
I love how like with modern Westerns they have to hammer home that point. They have to hammer it home at some point. Like in The Good Dinosaur, they hammer it home by having Sam Elliott in there. And with Logan, they hammer it in by having the characters literally watch Shane to remind you that, no, this is pretty much Shane. And especially like it feels like a different film just because you get to see Patrick Stewart in probably the best portrayal I've seen of Xavier, just for how cranky and snarky he is, just like spitting like, oh, you don't give a shit here.
Oh, and at some point they're pretending to be related to, and it just kind of works.
Yeah.
Angry Joe said one scene they could have done it was when Logan was carrying the professor to bed in those people's home and she was watching, and it could have been a silhouette where Laura views him as the comic version. I guess.
Partially. I think that might have that might have been interesting, but I think it might have taken just a little bit away from that, because the whole idea with the comic is sort of just is in her mind that's what Wolverine should be. And the whole point
where her hope is.
Yeah, because that's the whole point of the film, is like building up, like she sees the X-Men as her saviors, and they're really not at that point. So you kind of she's got to disillusion herself and then build it back up through, both herself and then Logan finally realizing, I got to stop being such a jerk and try to be a dad, even though I don't want to be a dad.
It's only a thing because they alluded to it from the second Wolverine movie. I didn't actually watch the Wolverine movies.
I could kind of see that because, well, he's talking about The Wolverine, which was also directed by James Mangold.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like, yeah, it would have tied that in, but I like the fact that it can stand on its own. Because, like, the Wolverine was pretty good, but it felt like it was mostly just trying to be like that. I forget what the name of the comic was, but the one where Wolverine goes to Japan.
Is that the one with the amnesia bullets, or is that a different?
No, that's X-Men Origins.
Okay.
That's like kind of, if you want to consider that the first Wolverine movie.
Okay.
Although a lot of people wouldn't, just because.
Amnesia bullets, what they did to Deadpool, that was in that movie, right?
Yeah, although I think they did a worse job with CGI Patrick Stewart.
Okay.
They tried to make Patrick Stewart look younger with a full CGI model, which
Ooh.
Yeah, it does not look good.
What year did that come out?
2009.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the year of Benjamin Button, but still, you're just like, this ain't working.
I don't know. Have you looked back at Benjamin Button since then?
You can see more of the seams now. But at least they were trying to be ambitious. They're here. They were just like, let's put young Patrick Stewart in there.
And talk about movies based off a short
Yeah.
So
They always do that. But yeah, I mean, Logan is so much fun to watch. Just like the brutality, like everyone's feel like, oh yes, finally an R-rated Wolverine film where he can get out the claws and actually stab people and not just like dig them in deep so you don't see any blood or guts.
Yeah.
Now he can do that, and he does it in a film that's actually worthy of it because it's incredibly well written. It's got a lot of great action scenes. That scene where Charles Xavier is having that freak out and freezes time with Logan putting his claws into the wall and slowly going in to kill the assassins is probably the most badass scene of Wolverine.
Stinky Tamale has a sequel question.
Okay.
If they move forward with the X-23 movie, the adult Laura, do you expect them to wait for the girl who played her in Logan or cast someone for the part relatively now?
I would hope they would cast her because she's an amazing actress. She'd be worth the wait. I would say, well, here's the thing. Like, if they really want to do it, I would say like let Mangold, if he's really interested, give him time to write a really badass X-23 script.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because he could make it into something kind of like kind of a coming of age type thing or something where she's trying to live up to some ideal, something like that. He could find some interesting style with it.
She's like 10 now, right? Or is she 12?
I think she's 12, maybe 13 now.
Okay.
They grow up fast, so the
past 10 years has been a blur.
So I don't think they'd have to wait very long.
Mm-hmm.
If they took their time, if they could find a decent script for her and not just throw a villain of the week in there. Like, I love that's one thing I love about Logan more than anything compared to these superhero films is they don't feel a need to throw in a villain. Like, yes, there is a Wolverine clone they throw in, but but it feels like like it's like evil scientist type guy and some other military people who fulfill the role well of being a conflicting force, and they have a real purpose for trying to get Laura back and for trying to hunt down Wolverine. And everything feels like it has a purpose as opposed to just another villain with a doomsday machine. Just getting tired of that. So here's a film that actually feels great. Western superhero film, whatever you want to call it. Logan's badass. Black and white or color. Either one. Let's see. So number 3, the best film of the year, is Coco. Love me Coco.
I recommended that one to my dad, and he wasn't interested because it was
because
it's Pixar.
Because it's Pixar, because it's animated.
Because it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon. Screw you, man.
It's just going to cast a shadow on all your future interactions. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, Coco is up there with Pixar's best films. It's on the level of Inside Out, and a lot of people are surprised at that because it's kind of a gamble. It's an original film. It's not based on anything in particular. It's using the Day of the Dead, so it kind of has that block to get over where because like when I was at the screening before it started, I was immediately hearing families saying, well, what was that other animated film about the Book of the Dead?
The Book of Life.
The Book of Life. Not the Book.
Not the
Day
Book
of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different film.
Something else.
Book of the Dead. But yeah, like
there's different movies though, like different stories and stuff. And I hear that, from what I hear, this is a lot more accurate to the culture.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, like, Pixar films, when they're at their best, is they do their research, and they actually they went to a Mexican village to study up as much as they could, and they nailed down the culture. And what I love so much about this is that the thing that I didn't like so much about like the Book of Life was that it felt chaotic and frantic. Like when we got to like the Land of the Dead, it felt like it had to be big and colorful and big and zooming and really quick and really fast. And here they actually take the time to set up like the ground rules of how this works here. So you have like Miguel, this little boy who really loves music, but his family has despised it, like all the way up to like his great grandfather went off to become a musician. They're like, he left the family, it's horrible, so no more music. We're just gonna make shoes.
All right.
And so he's getting tired of shoes and he wants to become a musician, and so he decides to embrace his idol called De La Cruz, who is a famous Mexican musician and celebrity and actor, and everyone loved him except, of course, his shoemaking family. So he decides to go off and like steal his guitar so he can play in the talent show, but he ends up being cursed because he's taken something from somebody that was dead. It's inside a mausoleum, and he
Uh-oh.
ends up in the land of the dead. And they establish all these ground rules for what happens when you're cursed. So you can only get back to the land of the living if you get the blessing of one of your dead relatives. And he's got a lot there.
And that's where this Coco comes in?
Well, that's the thing. Coco is still alive. She's kind of
okay.
Coco is Miguel's great grandmother, and she's kind of more or less kind of like the secret or kind of MacGuffin to all this, because she remembers like her father, who kind of walked out on them because he was a musician. Was in the chat.
Oh, nope, said, I remember when I was dead and my whole family hated me. Good times.
Well, actually, that kind of relates here because his relatives here don't want to send him back if he doesn't renounce music.
What kind of shitty relatives are those?
Because like say like, oh, we hate music so much, we're not going to send you back unless you do it. So he figures, well, screw you, because he has a hinkling that
A hinkling.
a hinkling.
A hinkling.
He has a
You mean an inkling?
He has an inkling. He has a little bit of a clue that maybe the dead Mexican celebrity De La Cruz is his great grandfather.
Possibly.
So he figures, if I can go up to him and get his blessing, because he loves music, he can send me back. Now, of course, there's some twists along the way.
Like, did they pull a Star Wars? It's a nobody.
No. There's a really interesting twist here. You kind of see it coming, but you kind of don't expect it to the degree, because this film deals with like the land of the dead and death and murder and backstabbings very maturely with family lineage and trying to understand your history.
Forgotten Shadow says if he doesn't, and then in parentheses, lie about renounce in parentheses ing music.
Okay. Well, yeah, because like I said, like a lot with Pixar's best films is like it focuses on mature themes, and it gets to a point like in relating with Inside Out, there's two moments where every parent in the theater will break out crying. Even I would almost say if you're
Pixar.
I would almost say if you're not a parent, because there's a very emotional ending here about Miguel trying to discover the truth about his family history and trying to bring everyone together, because they hate their great grandfather so much because he doesn't know who his great grandfather is, because they've removed his picture from the tribute that you have to lay out for the Day of the Dead.
That's ridiculous. Wait, was I a parent when we saw Up?
No, Up was 2009.
That still made me cry like a baby.
That's the thing, yeah. It's something because like the best Pixar films are the ones that make you bawl like a baby. And Up did that, Inside Out did that, and Coco did it twice.
There's a 5-minute extended for Inside Out. I haven't seen that.
Oh, 5-minute.
Forgotten Shadow says, I loved Inside Out enough to watch the 5-minute extend they did. I didn't watch that.
Oh, does he mean the 5-minute?
Was there a short?
There was a short, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Riley's Date.
Oh, it's
short?
an extra short they did. I did see that.
Yeah, Riley's Date.
I did see that. I didn't know that's okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
And the thing is, like, when I went to the press screening, like, I was on the verge of tears when I got to that ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw it the second time, because they didn't show the little Olaf shirt with it, so I had to go see that. I couldn't help myself. I really did cry the second time, and I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen.
Oh, did you take the kid to see Coco?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What did she think about the half-hour Olaf short?
She liked it, but she was confused.
Yeah, I would be too.
She was confused. Like, okay, are we watching Frozen here? Because this has been going on for 20 minutes.
She actually said something about it. Is the movie starting?
She said something akin to, "Is this what we're watching?" As if like this is the film.
See, when a 5-year-old points it out.
Yeah. And they had to put that little warning up there saying like, yeah, there's a 22-minute short about Frozen in here, which should have been on television. It should have been a Christmas special. No one's denying that. And thankfully, after future viewings, they took it out. Because it ruins the flow. It gives you all that Frozen stuff. It's like, okay, time for an original film now.
Forgotten Shadows, you and I watched completely different things. I've not heard of Telltale's Angel Beats or Kimi no Wa Wait, Kimi no Nawa. I
Uh,
need to watch those
some anime.
animes. I need to watch more anime,
Yeah.
probably.
I remember a little bit of Angel Beats.
Most of the
was a-
anime I watched is pretty old by now. So.
So yeah,
Angel Beats is a bittersweet ending. Well, that would explain why the crying then.
Coco. It's an emotional film. It's a beautiful film. They find fun stuff to do with these skeletons that kind of disassemble and eyeballs fly all over the place.
Naturally.
They find fun stuff to do with. They have Frida Kahlo there,
Oh, that
who's
makes sense.
who she's making all these weird art displays there that are so bizarre and funny and it's
Terminator 2.
it's very it moved me. It's it's one of Pixar's best. And I mean, they got the best animated Oscar locked in the bag here. There's no question, especially because it's been kind of a dead year for animation. There's been a lot of great animated films out there to compete with it. So yeah, Coco, it's up there with Inside Out.
Hello again, Pookie. I'll have to check out Kimi no Na wa. If it's the largest grossing anime in Japan, probably should check it out.
Is that okay? I'm trying to think of it's probably not. I'm confusing it with because the only anime I'm familiar with right now is Your Name.
That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
It says it translates to Your Name.
Oh man.
Stingy Tamale wants, when you're done with the list, they want to know your rank of the top 5 movies of all time.
Okay, I think I did it last stream, but I'll do it again. So
Every stream.
every stream we'll do it. Why not? We'll run down it. All right, so yeah, number 3, Coco, Pixar's best. Number 2 is Edgar Wright's Baby Driver.
Yeah, I really liked that movie. I'm kind of surprised, though, with how much you've been going on about it, that it's not your number 1.
There was one that edged it out. It was very close. It was very close. It's neck and neck.
Thanks for coming, Stingy Tamale, if it's your first time here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Baby Driver, like if you're familiar with Edgar Wright's work on stuff like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and World's End, you know what you're in for. It's going to be quick editing. It's going to be great action. It's going to be characters who don't waste a single scene. Like you're always with them, even the terrible ones.
Yeah, I love Edgar Wright movies. Like I said before in a different stream with Stingy Tamale, Hot Fuzz is would be one of my top 5. In fact, it was like the first movie I watched right after I had a baby.
Yeah.
Like I was laying in bed and barely moved. Like, let's watch some Hot Fuzz.
Well, Hot Fuzz is so much fun just because like it's a tribute film because it pays tribute to action films, but it's its own thing entirely, and it's so well coordinated and well tuned and has the perfect shots and has the tightest editing. And all that's present here in Baby Driver. Even more, because like this is a passion project of Edgar Wright. He's had this script since the 90s. He's wanted to make this film for a long
you did tell me
time.
about that. Yeah. Empress Pookie says to watch 2 Ghibli films, and yeah, I've watched. I'm not going to say all of them. I'm pretty sure I've watched most of them though, and I know you've probably watched all of them.
Oh yeah.
See, Forgotten Shadow says the soundtrack was always fitting for what was going on and matched what Baby was listening to, and what he wasn't listening to anything. You could hear the ringing he hears from his trauma. And yes, I agree. It was good.
Yeah, if there's anything that's going to edge out Dunkirk for sound design, for sound editing or sound design, it's going to be Baby Driver, because they use music here, and like Baby's little tinnitus that he has, that he has to constantly have music going. And how it coordinates with his world, it's all perfectly synced up. Like from like the first scene where we have him, in that amazing escape in the getaway sequence where he's in the car there, outrunning the cops and fooling them with different cars and going around alleys and stuff like that. The scene was so great they had to release it. Mm-hmm. And then you have that scene right after that where he's going off to get coffee, and it's perfectly tuned where he's going up the street and everything. Good. And I love, if you go back and watch that scene, there's all kinds of like fun stuff in the street to notice that wasn't there before.
I'll have to watch it again.
It's so much fun to watch the second time around. And then just like, and of course that brilliant ending there where every single like shot and blast and punch and kick and smashing of cars is all tuned to amazing music. I mean, you have a car duel set to Queen, perfectly synced up.
Yeah, Forgotten Shadow says they designed the scenes around the music. I could see that.
They had to, because that's that good.
It was good.
Every actor here is performing incredibly well here. Like Ansel Elgort, he's the main character here, and he really does steal the film with just his kind of like silent acting here, just his spirit here. Jamie Foxx as the chaotic force is like you fear him, and you can't wait to see what he does next, just because he's so insane. John Hamm is perfect as the criminal, who's always smooth. Kevin Spacey is a smarmy guy who keeps trying to bring him back in. And then Lily James as the love interest of the waitress. She's cute, and they have a great relationship. So yeah, everything about Baby Driver, like I said, it's like watching a perfectly calculated music video ballet type thing of cars.
Car ballet. That's interesting.
It's just I'm struggling for words. It's a damn fine film, like where every little detail has been thought of here.
Mm-hmm. What's number one?
And number one on my list, which edged it out, like this one was kind of a little bit of an easier one, just because this one involved me the most and engaged me the most without question. Number one is Sean Baker's The Florida Project.
I just want to interrupt for a minute. I don't think Baby Driver would be considered a musical. Musical is usually when people are singing in the movie. Or would you consider it a musical? I wouldn't.
I don't know if I'd quite consider it a musical, just because there don't. I mean, I think it's a tough call, but I'm gonna have to say, like, if you want to call it a musical, fine. But I wouldn't quite place it in there, just because it feels like it's more tuned towards the music, as opposed to music kind of taking more of like it feels like the music and the action are going hand in hand.
Oh, it said the musical comment was a joke.
Oh.
So, just stop now. They don't want you to spoil the Florida Project. They've been wanting to see it for a while.
Okay, I won't spoil the story. Although I'm just gonna say that if you're familiar with Sean Baker's work with stuff like Tangerine, you know that he likes to shoot stuff very naturally with very kind of outsider people. And this is a story that focuses mostly on the destitute people living just outside Disney World who are kind of living, jobs, like they're relying on minimum wage jobs to keep them housed in these little motels. And it focuses mostly on the kids, what the kids are going through during their summer. So while the adults are struggling to make ends meet and try to, keep their jobs and try to keep the money coming in, the kids are just being kids. They're running around, they're having fun, they're having belching contests, they're going into like little abandoned houses, and they're playing and everything. I would be curious to see the behind the scenes on this, because Sean Baker knows how to direct people to feel natural. Like he did that with Tangerine, which is about prostitutes running around on Christmas. It felt very, very real here, and the kids here feel incredibly real. Like I know a lot of people say like, oh well, the kids feel like they're acting like kids here. This really does feel like kids are acting like kids, to the point where I'm not even sure how much of this he actually scripted or directed. He just said like, okay, why don't you kids do this, and then just let the kids go off and do it.
Well, let's bring in another somewhat natural movie about kids, I guess. Forgotten Shadows wants to know if you ever watched Boyhood.
I did watch Boyhood.
Did you like it? I don't think you did.
I
can't remember exactly.
I was on the fence. I liked aspects of it in bits and pieces, like it was like shot over so many over a decade. And I liked certain areas that it explores, but other times it just feels like it's being too snapshotty. And I know that Richard Linklater does this with a lot of his films, where he just tries to place this in the moment and then just kind of shift somewhere else. But I don't know. It feels just a little bit too full of itself with the artistic angle they took here. Just because I think that his style works better when we're kind of more in the moment, and here Boyhood felt like it was trying to like shoot for the stars, which I kind of appreciate with Linklater. But I think he does well when he kind of focuses on just a few days as opposed to over the course of many years, because over that he's trying to build up certain like aspects, like the Harry Potter craze and then voting for Obama and all these points here that I feel could have better been exemplified in longer bits. Because it just feels like the Harry Potter bit, they just show like the kid going to get the book, and that was it. So
Forgotten Shadows says they find it amazing, but they couldn't stop watching it. it was good at being entertaining. Would you agree with that?
I think so. It does keep you involved. You are interested to see where this kid is going, what happens with him. I don't think it's as grand. Like, of course, everyone's gonna build it up as, you know, like the best film of the year because Linklater was taking a shot here. But Linklater always takes experimental shots. Like, there's very few of his films that I find boring. I don't think it. I think it got a little bit full of itself towards the end there when they try to bring a sort of, I guess, kind of a catharsis to like the end there, where it's kind of saying like, man, it's been one crazy trip, hasn't it? You know, life is crazy that way. And I kind of was like, yeah, I kind of get the point, but I kind of would have liked to seen more different aspects of it. It almost kind of feels like Linklater was trying to make his version of Tree of Life, which is trying to be very, very ambitious here. So I appreciate it. I like the film for doing that. I just don't think it's Linklater's best. So yeah, it's a good film. It's entertaining. Kept me involved. But there's just certain scenes that didn't quite work for me. Some scenes work better than others.
Forgotten Shadows says the point of Boyhood, in their opinion, wasn't even about the kid. It was about life in general and how chaotic it can be.
Yeah. And they nail that point home by the end, which kind of glad that they did, because otherwise I think people would have missed the bigger point that Linklater has, just in case like some people weren't grasping it. I think they kind of hit it out of the park when they get to his mom saying like, "Oh, you were just a boy and now you're up here." It's like, okay, we get that. We grew up with him and we see that. So
okay, now let's tell. Since Molly's asked, what are your top 5 of all time?
Top 5 all time. Okay, so all right, I'll just scoot by the Florida Project, just saying it's the best role of Willem Dafoe's career.
Oh, you weren't done with the Florida Project.
Yeah, I won't spoil much. Just saying, like, Willem Dafoe is the motel manager, and this is his best role ever. So I hope he gets an award for it. And that's another reason why it was number 1 on my list. So yeah, we're doing the top 5.
Yeah, they had further up the chat asked for the top 5.
Okay, I think I did this last stream, so let me see if I can remember. Number 1 is definitely Jacques Tati's Playtime. Just because it's a very kind of like fly-on-the-wall type film that uses the medium, like, cause the whole point of film is to have a visual medium, and it follows a bunch of tourists around Paris, and it's fun, it's charming, and has a lot of fun with exploring many different characters, and there's so much to look at in the frame, and it's in French, and there are translations, but you really don't need it because most of it is just purely visual, and it's so much fun to follow, and it touched me emotionally on that level. Number 2, more technical, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. You can't go wrong with Vertigo. Number 3, I believe I said was almost like a quiz for me. Number 3.
You don't have to probably say the same ones every time.
I guess so.
Your opinion might change.
Well, yeah, but there are like so many great films in my head that, you know, sometimes it helps just have a list to nail them down. Number 3 I remember was Seven Samurai. Just because it started off so many other great films. And it's like the Citizen Kane of action films. You know, it started off this whole badass idea of, you know, a whole bunch of outlaws and weirdos coming together to save the day from a village being assaulted. Long film, but definitely one of Kurosawa's best. I doubt many people dispute that. Some people might say Yojimbo, probably, but there you go. Number 4 is Casablanca, just because it's brilliantly well written. There are characters you can't forget, scenes that are going to be stuck in your brain forever, and just the setting of it is just amazing. And then number 5 is Fargo, just because Fargo hits so many different tones, and it's fun to follow the characters, and just Frances McDormand's character of Marge is just the sweetest character, and you hope she makes it out of the end. William H. Macy is fun to watch when he's sweating under the collar and this scheme gone wrong. It's just, it's very violent, gets pretty dark at times, but it generally has a pretty sweet nature on it for satirizing Minnesota. So, so there you go. Those are my top 5.
Forgotten Shadows asks if you are into anime, would you wouldn't mind watching the same type of content regarding anime instead of movies. Consider it. Well,
I am pretty big into anime. Well, at least older anime. Like, I'm big into the discotheque stuff that they're coming out of there.
Robotech.
I love Robotech.
Our kid loves Robotech.
I love me
too.
some Robotech. Yeah, Ghibli films are always good. I'm trying to get into some older anime that I haven't quite got to. Like I'm currently watching the Crusher Joe movie.
Just a minute.
It's pretty cool.
Diversity. The Emoji Movie was bad.
Yes.
Very bad.
Yes.
Intensely bad.
Yes. If you'll notice, it's in a slideshow of the worst films of the year, and the bottom there. You'll notice that those are the worst. So yeah, for those who weren't here, I'll run down this quick just so I don't run again. For the worst films of
The Room. That's not this year, but that was bad. Or like so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Forgotten Shadows, Robotech, so you like the Psycho-Pass then. Like Psycho-Pass then.
The Psycho-Pass anime. I think I've seen Psycho-Pass. I think I have. I haven't kept this. I've tried to get into some new anime. I haven't kept up with as much of it.
Not sure if Donnie B. Good is typing in the right chat. Where's the cuck stuff coming from?
What? What are we talking about? Did it sound like I said that when I said Crusher Joe?
Star Wars movie, good or bad?
I say it's good. You say it's...
I didn't see it, so I don't necessarily say anything. I said the story sounds horrible, though.
Yeah.
So...
No interest, essentially,
no,
yeah.
I'm not going to watch it until it's on DVD, probably. Yeah. Vision Shot asked best film of all the years. We sort of already answered that. Or Mark gave his top 5, and I don't remember what your top 1 was. I hadn't heard of it.
Playtime.
Someone else commented that they were more biased to recent movies.
Yeah, well, like I can see that. Yeah, if you haven't dug as far back into the past, then yeah, most of your recollection is going to be of recent films that have really touched you.
Vision Shot had been talking about The Room though when they said best film of all years. Oh, that was a statement, not a question. Got it. Yeah. What Wish Upon the Bad List? Come on, it wasn't that bad. Says Diversity.
Wish Upon was
Diversity.
I will say it was pretty bad that it was funny. But at the same time, it's like I said, like that ending where they got to the end there is supposed to be like a big twist. Like, nah, character is a jerk. She had it coming. If she were really mindful of how these wishes work, she would have seen that coming a mile away. And it's not that shocking about what happens to her in the end.
Stingy Tamale says Leon the Professional is one of their top. They've seen the classics you mentioned, but they didn't have the same impact on them. I liked Leon the Professional, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
So. And
yeah, like I said, like the films that are at the top of my list are somewhat personal. For just about everyone, they have a personal film for what they consider the best. Because, like I said, like Jacques Tati's Playtime, that film resonated with me just because I saw it after I was feeling really alone after a breakup in the city. And seeing something like Playtime, where it felt like the city was open and there's so much to see and so many people to talk to and so much fun stuff to do, that just resonated with me.
Forgotten Shadows is talking about how they pushed Amityville series past where it should have died, and they hate movies that rely on jump scares and don't understand what horror actually is.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the Amityville series because I don't like movies where things jump out and go boo.
Amityville hasn't been good since like the 70s. Like I remember, like there was that. I think it was like the third one they were promoting. It's like Amityville Horror in 3D. And it was pretty goofy at the time. Yeah, jump scares. We are getting to a better point with horror, where horror is starting to be taken a little bit more seriously. Like we had that film The Witch, which was very, very disturbing and felt like a real horror film meant to get under your skin. There's another great one this year that a lot of people might have missed called It Comes at Night, which a lot of people didn't like because, spoilers, there isn't really an it or monster in the woods coming to get them. But there is a disease and there is some distrust and there is some very shocking stuff that goes down in the end that really did shake me by the end of that film.
Stingy Tamale wants to know what made you want to become a movie critic. I have a simple answer, but you can answer it.
Okay. Just because I've been obsessed with movies since I was working at Hollywood Video when I was in high school. And so I'd been collecting them and studying them. Like there was one summer in college where I wanted to see every film in the Criterion Collection, and I came close. And I've just been obsessed with it. And I'd been writing about it for many years. I've been writing on small blogs like that. I was writing back when Rotten Tomatoes used to have personal blogs. And I think they carry over some of the reviews, but you used to have like your own little page where you could put your own Rotten Tomatoes score up there. And I remember that was kind of a big thing at the time.
I have a one-word answer I could say, but I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you this story Mark's mom told me, and you can draw your own conclusions.
Oh, boy.
In kindergarten, Mark got in trouble for disrupting the class when he would quote movies from beginning to end in class. Like word for word. Diversity says, so what do you think about the upcoming Insidious 4?
I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've never been the biggest fan of Insidious, but the films haven't disappointed me. I mean, like the second one was not as well done as the first one, but rarely have they disappointed me. Like I've slowly gotten more into the Insidious films, as much as I have the Conjuring films. So looking forward to it.
Let's see, Stingy Tamale said something about John Wick set the standards for action movies and to do away with the cheesy one-liners and over-the-top explosions. Mm-hmm. And then they wanted to know, is it cinematography in general that got you into movie critics or the stories themselves?
I think probably more the like stories initially got me invested, and then I think the visual use of the medium got me more interested, because when I went to college I started looking at films more strictly, more going into like the history of cinema, looking up different techniques and stuff like that. And then it got me a lot more interested in it. Like I really loved the fact that Playtime was a film made by Jacques Tati with like a lot of extra money, and a lot of those sets were built. Like he built, like there's a scene where the character of Mr. Hulot is running around this maze of what's like the Cubicle Farm, and this was like years before the Cubicle Farm was an actual thing. So I just like love little touches like that. But yeah, I mean, story, like I love writing, so story of course is like a big influence. But again, like visual medium is, I think, one of the biggest keys about it, because I mean, like the visuals are the only reason that you wouldn't read a book, because I mean you get the story from the book, but if you're using film, you got to use it well. You got to have some flair to it, have an idea in mind, give us something to look at, as opposed to a radio drama. So yeah, I got mostly into a lot of those older films are very like well written stories, and then have great shot composition in there. Especially stuff like Lawrence of Arabia. It's just amazing. I've been told that Lawrence of Arabia is amazing to see on the big screen, just because of that great scene where you see the guy far off in the distance, and he slowly comes towards the screen because he was really that far away in the desert. And I've heard that's amazing to watch on the big screen. So if I ever get a chance, I'll try to see it on the big screen. So in case anyone missed it, we'll run down the list of the best movies of the year. Number 10 was Lady Bird. Number 9 was Dunkirk. Number 8, Get Out. Number 7, War of the Planet of the Apes. Number 6, Blade Runner 2049. Number 5, Mudbound. Number 4, Logan. Number 3, Coco. Number 2, Baby Driver. And number 1, The Florida Project. Then we'll go quickly on the worst films of the year. Number 10, The Space Between Us. Number 9, Werner Herzog's Queen of the Desert. Number 8, The Circle. Number 7, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul. Number 6, Wish Upon. Number 5, Rings. Number 4, Baywatch. Number 3, Transformers, The Last Night. Number 2, Fist Fight. And number 1, The Emoji Movie. And then, I forgot, I have some other films worth mentioning here. You mentioned John Wick. Yes, I do mention John Wick too. That film was kind of like watching an action ballet. It's just like well coordinated, not as much campy, goofy dialogue. I love the fact that with John Wick 2, how the dialogue is kept so contained. Like, there's that great moment where he passes another hitman that he knows after he's finished a job. And he's just kind of like, oh, you working? Yeah. And they know they're going to have to kill each other at that point. So just straight, quick, to the point, no fat. Can't wait for John Wick 3, which is eventually going to happen. It gets a little crazy towards the end, especially when we have that, where it seems like every single person in New York is out to kill John Wick. But it's fun on that level. We mentioned Lego Batman. Lego Batman obviously needs to be seen. One film that I think might get overlooked, but I think should definitely be seen, is Wind River. Which it takes place in the Wyoming setting. It's kind of a modern Western where, what's his name? Oh, Hawkeye. What's his name? The guy who plays Hawkeye, he's investigating the murder of a Native American woman who was found dead in the snow. And she's in between an Indian reservation and an oil company in the area. And so there's this kind of like battle of territories and trying to figure out, how this woman died and trying to solve the mystery. And it's got some great supporting performances from the likes of like Graham Greene, I believe, who you might know from Dances with Wolves and The Red Green Show. We know as what's his name? Was his name Edgar?
Edgar Montrose.
Edgar Montrose.
On Red Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's an amazing actor, and he
should get more roles.
Oh, this is probably my favorite role that I've seen of his in a long time, because he's playing the local law enforcement on the Indian reservation, and he gets in some of the funniest lines in this film. Like, and not even like goofy lines, just like well-timed, snarky lines that should be said in these types of situations. So he's really great, and also I think his name is Birmingham. He played the Native American in Hell or High Water. He's in the film too as sort of a grieving family member of the girl who was found dead. He's kind of briefly in the film, but his scenes are really amazing, just for the disdain he has for law enforcement and trying to come to terms with the fact that a member of his family's gone. So it's got some amazing performances. It's got an amazing shootout towards the end. And it's fun to just follow this kind of the Wyoming setting of just trying to deal with snow and trying to confront these people living out in the middle of nowhere, and then getting into gunfights, and then realizing that if you get shot out here, you're way, way, way far away from any hospital, that you're pretty much just going to bleed out and die. So yeah. It's not a great film in terms of a little bit of the pacing here. They have like some there's some questionable music choices, but I overall like the message of the film and how it stresses that a lot of the deaths of like Native American women are not documented on reservations, and how this is like a serious issue.
Is that true? Really?
At least that's what it sounded like from like the end when they were talking about it. Because like they were trying to stress that how because like the main character here is essentially like a wildlife person trying to investigate along with the FBI, and they're basically being stonewalled at every point, saying like this isn't worth your time. This is Wyoming. She could have died from anything out in the woods. It's not worth investigating. So it's at least drawing. So it's drawing, on something that's real, and at the same time, it has like this great sort of like winter western vibe going to it. So
we know we like westerns.
Who
Let's see
doesn't?
a couple of things. Okay, I'm gonna read the statement, and then I'll do the question.
Okay.
Forgotten Shadow says, my top 5 animes: Serial Experiments Lain, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Madoka Magic, the series, not the movies, Angel Beasts, and Soul Eater. And they recommend those if you haven't seen them. Stingy Tamale asks, if you could reboot a movie, which would you want, and who would you want to direct it?
If I could reboot a movie, I would say I would say reboot Logan's Run and give it to Denis Villeneuve. Because, I mean, Logan's Run is, it's kind of a cult classic, but it's also kind of, kind of a campy bad movie with, like, the tinfoil monster and the...
They were rebooting Logan's Run, though.
Were they? I know there was, like,
I feel like I heard that before somewhere.
I think there was, a series. They did a little mini-series, I think, of it.
Okay.
But I'd be curious to see what Denis Villeneuve would do with a concept like that. And how he would kind of like twist the story of the reincarnation of the hands and stuff like that, and sort of and obviously make a better sci-fi setting than the weird little miniatures they had. So yeah, I think you could turn that around the same way that that Matt Reeves turned around the Planet of the Apes series. Yeah, I'd be here for that. Like the other thing I would say was have Denis Villeneuve do reboot Dune, which he is doing right now, which if anyone should tackle Dune, it should be him. I can't think of a single other director who would possibly do a good job on it. Yeah. Let's see, other films to mention. The Marvel films, they're kind of think that, they're all leading into like the same type of formula, but Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok at least were shaking the cage this year and providing something different. Like Spider-Man Homecoming felt like Peter Parker was actually in high school. Like the high school felt like a real place. And Thor Ragnarok felt like it was actually exploring more of the Nine Realms and had this neat little 80s vibe to it, which is a lot more fun to explore than the Asgard trying to sound like they're Shakespearean with it.
So IMDb shows an update for Logan's Run in 2016, but can't find anything on an actual remake. So maybe I'm not pulling that out of my ass. I don't know.
It might have been in the works.
Maybe.
There's a lot of reboots and sequels that are in the works that we don't know what's going on with them.
I wish they just come up with more original stuff, but based off of Mark's recommendation, I sent my father and stepmother to Shape of Water, and they didn't dig it. So
maybe I should have told them there's a lot of sex in The Shape of Water.
Well, they're grown adults; they can handle it.
I don't know, man.
I think I told them there was
there's sex, there's
love. I don't know.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. There's that. It's pretty violent too. I think
maybe they weren't expecting that, but because I probably wouldn't have based off of what you told me. So
I think I stressed some of the violence. There is one really gory scene I mentioned that involves a bullet wound in a finger. So
Shinji Tamale thinks I'm asking too much for original, as a joke. I'm sure. The Florida Project's DVD is supposed to come out February 28.
Wonderful. I can't wait. I hope everyone sees this film. Also, yeah, and if you can't wait, if you want to get a little taste of what Sean Baker does, definitely check out Tangerine. A One Crazy Christmas for a bunch of prostitutes, and it was shot entirely on iPhones.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Just to see how good the quality could be. Now, obviously, like he brought it into Final Cut and he did a few little edits on it.
Which iPhone version?
I think they were the latest version at the time.
Yeah, that doesn't. I don't know when.
But he got
came out.
He got 3 of them and just filmed them because he wanted to have like a mobility, because he wanted them to kind of like run up and down the street, and he didn't like having have the hall rig. So what if I get like a phone and I could just kind of just film the whole thing on a phone and get it kind of going through there. And the results were surprising, especially after, I think he kind of just revealed it after the film debuted. Like, oh yeah, we shot this on iPhones.
Well, I'm sure Apple liked the endorsement.
I'm sure they did.
They should have paid him for that one. If they didn't, if they didn't, they should have.
Well, and it's not even kind of like you just give it credit for the gimmick. It's kind of like, oh, you shot it on an iPhone. Well, that's kind of, because I remember there was a big deal, like someone made an entire film in iMovie. And it wasn't very good. But they're just kind of like, oh, well, you made a whole movie in iMovie and you submitted it to Cannes Film Festival.
Well, I don't know how iMovie is these days, but when I had to use it for a high school art class, it was awful, and
yeah, and this was...
It was really bad. I kept losing our files and stuff.
And I think
trash.
This was back in 2003, so, yeah.
So that was... before I even took that class, so
Yeah.
I was probably worse at that point. Got it.
Well, there's a lot of experimenting going on with a lot of like improving technologies. Like Richard Linklater did like kind of the first, well, maybe not the first, but kind of like the first like digital independent animated film where he did Waking Life, where he just shot a whole bunch of footage and then convinced a whole bunch of artists to do rotoscope over it. So yeah,
Waking Life. It just made me think of Waking Wabbit.
Waking
Your
Life,
little cartoon.
that little cartoon
How
they
old is
made.
it now?
11 years old.
And then there's the Christmas one that I
Mhm.
got you to make for a Christmas present for family members or something.
Yep.
How is that, like 10 years old now?
9 probably.
9.
Look how old you are.
What are you looking forward to in 2018 releases? He
Um,
asks.
I should probably like right off the bat, Black Panther, just because that's gonna be coming out the quickest. In terms of other films, I'm kind of looking forward to. I think it's gonna be released at the end of the year. Is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman? Just because I like the cast he's assembling for it, and oh, and of course, Incredibles 2. Just because Brad Bird's back, and it sounds like Brad Bird has a plan this time, and they're not just going to kind of rush into it. I wish Pixar were doing more original films, but if they're going to come back to Incredibles, which everyone wants them to come back to the Incredibles,
Including you, because you've been asking for that for a while.
well, yes, but at the same time, like I want them to come back with a purpose. I don't want it to be like Cars, where they just think, "Oh, let's find something for the characters to do."
Of all the Pixar movies, for them to make a sequel to, Cars was probably like the last on my list.
Especially because they didn't have much for them to do. The Incredibles, I hope they. It sounds like they have a plan.
They doing Incredibles in real time, or is Jack Jack still a baby? I think Jack Jack's still a baby.
From
I
the
think he was in the trailer, right?
from the teaser trailer that we've seen, yes, he is still a baby, but you never know. It might be a little fool there because like the one thing that I speculated would happen was that the film would, and I think they've stated this, the film will pick up with them fighting the Underminer where the last film left off. And I kind of imagine like it's going to be this thing where they fight the Underminer, they come together as a family, and it's like, yes, we're going to bond together. And then they'll hard cut to when the kids are older and the family's kind of falling apart while the kids are going, like Violet's going off to college, or like Jack or what's his name?
Dash.
Dash is having problems in high school, stuff like that, and they're gonna kind of be split apart as a family and then have to come back together for something like that, which could work if there's the family aspect works, because Brad Bird wrote The Incredibles based on you know how tough it was to be a family and have children at the time. And if you can find more stuff to relate to with that, with the whole family aspect, because that's going to be the core of the film. I mean, they can fight the Underminer or whatever crazy villains they can come up with, but if there isn't that central theme there that works, there's no point to it.
Forgotten Shadows points out when Incredibles 2, the kids' movie, comes out in theaters, it'll be filled with adults. But I'd argue that most Pixar movies are like that, in my experience, because we actually saw more kids' movies before we had our kid than we do after we had our kid. So,
That might
looking
be.
forward to Black Panther, but the Infinity War trailer just overshadows it. I don't know, I might not see either of them. I'm sure you'll see both of them, so...
I don't know, like I'm not as big on like the ensemble thing could be kind of cool, like like there's a little bit of hope for it after Civil War, because Civil War found like a unique balance to make it intense, and you have the Russo brothers back working on it, so there's a lot of hope for that. But Black Panther, I'm kind of looking forward to a little bit more, just because it looks like it has its own vibe and style to it, a lot like Thor Ragnarok. Like Thor Ragnarok looked like it just took like everything that was kind of bland about Thor and just like juiced it up with with color and humor and creativity and all this weird sci-fi stuff and Jeff Goldblum, and just went with it, which is what I'm hoping Black Panther will be. I hope it'll be its own thing, and it'll be a superhero film that won't have to be a superhero film. Like it'll be its own kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, like Infinity War, it's got a lot riding on it So it's kind of a gamble, but I have faith in the Russo brothers. They haven't let me down yet. They've done some pretty damn good films, Winter Soldier and Civil War. So let them have it.
Tamale didn't like Thor Ragnarok too much. Guardians of the Galaxy didn't hate it. Just felt like nothing was serious. Character dying, no big deal. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like it got good reviews, but the other Thor movies, I don't think.
Well, I was...
People didn't like them as much, did they? I liked them okay. The second one was very forgettable, so I don't know.
It depends how much you like Thor. Like, because we know someone who's a huge fan of the Thor comic books. And for him, he really liked the first Thor film, and he thought like the second film was still true to the character. Mm-hmm. The third one is a huge deviation. So if you liked what they were doing with Thor, you're probably not going to like the third one because they take it in an entirely different direction with that. Because they do focus on more of humor. They do explore more of the realms. They take more chances. They have more fun with it, probably than you're used to for the Thor films. So, it's divergent, and I understand why people don't like it because it seems more like Guardians of the Galaxy because they're throwing all this like neon color and 80s stuff at it. But I kind of liked it for that. I like that we could take that little detour onto the Junker Gladiator planet before we had to go back to Asgard and watch, Enchantress with the weird thing on her head from like the same
antlers.
the antlers from the same store as the Enchantress from Suicide Squad.
Didn't see it. I saw Suicide Squad, but I don't know why. Forgotten Shadows. I trust YouTube movie reviewers more than the general reception of movies. I think you should trust whoever generally likes the same movies as you do, because all reviewers are different, and some of them might be the more popular ones, and some of them might be the YouTube reviewers. So.
Yeah. And I make sure to...
So let's not talk about Suicide Squad. And the next chat thing is, I thought Suicide Squad was average. We're talking about Suicide Squad.
We somehow came back to Suicide Squad. We were talking about it at the beginning, and we come back to it again.
Oh, yeah. The animated Suicide Squad was awesome, and they should have used that story.
Everyone agrees with that, yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier in the stream when no one was probably watching that I actually saw Suicide Squad twice, which I know it was bad, and I know I shouldn't have seen it twice. I did it because I wanted the characters to work so bad, it didn't. But I
would you say it's kind of a guilty pleasure just because you like the kind of the character? Yeah.
Yes, and it was for the other person who saw it with me.
Sure.
So, and I think I partially saw the second time because the other person wanted to see it. So.
Yeah. That happens.
But I don't know. It was worse on repeat viewing, but the first time, I don't know. I just wanted it to work so bad because I like the characters from when I watched the animated versions.
Yeah. And
it's been all going downhill for years. So.
And I wanted it to work too because I'm a big fan of David Ayer's work. And I thought
they're making a Venom movie?
Yeah. They're still working on the Venom movie. So.
Okay. Someone's nervous about it, but it's their all-time favorite villain anti-hero. Wasn't Venom in the third Spider-Man movie?
Yep.
The one that I didn't see because it looked bad.
Yeah. It's
Well, if you survived the Topher Grace version, how much worse could it get? I didn't see it, but I assume it was bad because it looked bad.
It's got a low bar to cross. I'll say that. But yeah, at least from the perspective of kind of Sony working with Marvel Studios, there's a better chance that you're gonna get a good film. Like Spider-Man: Homecoming is a good sign.
There was no third Spider-Man movie, and yet you just say you survived it. So
we did survive it. We survived a whole bunch of. We were able to survive like the Amazing Spider-Man. So.
It's not midnight here, Forgotten Shadows. It's midnight where you are.
No.
It's not midnight here.
No.
Although I think I should go to bed regardless, but...
Yeah, it's midnight somewhere. Yeah.
Survived the fanfiction Spider-Man someone labeled 3. Well, I feel the same way about Suicide Squad and
I kind of
Basically, most of the superhero movies have been coming out. I was never a Marvel reader, so I'm okay with those, I guess.
yeah.
Although I'm getting tired of them, just because there's too many of them.
Yeah.
So.
If they're,
I
there's
do consider the new Star Wars to be a bit of a fan fiction.
yeah.
And I am constantly, to Mark, comparing The Last Jedi to Harry Potter the Cursed Child. So.
Which that's your go-to for taking a franchise in a wrong direction.
Yes, no, Twilight is proof movies do not have to have quality. Last Jedi, aka Spaceballs too. I think that's an insult to Spaceballs, personally.
The search for more money.
Ayo, Mark, do you know Crispy McGuffin?
Crispy McGuffin?
They're called Crispy McGuffin, and they say, "Ayo, Mark, what's up, Daddy?"
Hey, yo, Crispy McGuffin. Should I be looking for you?
He says, "Why ain't you pick me up from school? Our kid's on school break. I don't know who you are."
Do I have another kid? What's going on?
See, is there something you're not telling me, Mark?
I don't know.
I don't know when you would have had time for that.
I
The
kind of
Search for More Money works for a lot of recent sequels, or like all of them.
that and the Twilight is the low bar too. Everyone says like, well, at least it wasn't as bad as Twilight. That's kind of like the nice answer. Well, at least you didn't make total horse shit. You know?
Yeah, or Twilight's lazy raunchy sequel, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Why? Ooh. Have you talked about the DCEU? Kind of.
Yeah.
More Twilight. Now, I'll never watch Twilight. I did listen to Gilbert Godfrey do a reading of some of it. No, wait, that was 50 Shades.
That's 50 Shades,
yeah. 50 Shades. I don't give a shit. I'm not watching either of those.
I have watched
I don't care.
I have watched all the Twilight films twice. Because at one point I was reviewing DVDs and they gave me the Twilight box set to review, and I had to go through all the Blu-rays of that, so I sat through that shit long enough.
We're gonna flashpoint the DCU into something better.
Yeah, that's the one thing that has me excited more about the DCU than anything is like the Flash movie they're planning is gonna be Flashpoint.
Cool.
Which, yeah, that immediately is like, okay, you know what? Screw Justice League. I don't care what they do. Just if they can make a Flashpoint movie, that's all I care about. Because Flashpoint is, if anyone's seen, like, what was it called? Like, the Flashpoint Crisis or whatever, the animated film. That film and the comic book with all the tie-ins of Gorilla Grodd having a war in Africa and the Atlanteans versus the Amazons and everyone killing everybody in this alternative timeline and the whole thing coming back with Flash at the end trying to save his parents. It's gonna be amazing if they actually can pull it off. So, and that'll be a great way if they want to segue into kind of more or less rebooting the whole DCEU.
Forgotten Shadows watched all the Twilight movies. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I share your pain.
Or did you watch all the Twilight movies? I was quoting you.
He was probably quoting me. I did watch them all because I had to review them.
Since Smalley says so many directors are dropping from Flash, yeah. Well, after watching I didn't watch DC, but after you hear about the DC one, it's just gotta like, can you blame them? Can you blame them?
Denise Villeneuve, save the day, please.
Well, live-action Flashpoint Crisis, Assault on Arkham, Batman Under the Red Hood. I don't think it'll ever happen. Sorry, dude.
Under the Red Hood might happen.
Does that mean recast with the reboots? I have heard that they might... Well, they're going to pretty much have to recast Batman because Ben Affleck doesn't want to do it anymore.
Still wants to direct it for some reason, yeah. Just, recast everything, just do Flashpoints. That or the Shazam movie. Kind of looking forward to the Shazam movie.
Shazam! Is that still happening? I think I heard something about that too.
It's rumored to still be happening.
Okay.
I hope it's still happening. I know the only one I know for sure is Aquaman is still going forward. So.
Scott Adkins for Bruce Wayne. I don't know. Well, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
I've got work in the morning.
All right. Well, this has been Movies with Mark. My name is Mark McPherson. You can read my movie reviews at moviespoon.com, twincitiesgeek.com, which I just have a review up today of Bright, the new Netflix films by David Ayer. I also have my personal website, movieswithmark.com, which you can go on there right now and look at the top 10 list, where I wrote a little bit more on that. You can also go to Amazon, check out my books, The Best, Worst, Weird Movies of the 1990s, and Pixels to Premieres, A History of Video Game Movies. And I have Twitter, and I have a Patreon with little goals, including advanced copies of my books, and you can read some extra stuff there, too. And there's lots of other crap below, so you can take a look at that. And this has been my wife. She does an art stream on Wednesdays.
At 8?
At 8 o'clock, same
Central
as...
Time.
8,
Central Time.
Yep, 8 Central, just like this one on Thursdays at 8 Central. So, yeah, thank you. There's a lot of people here tonight, I guess. Few people. And that's what she's painted in this amount of time.
I did not paint that in this amount of time. I painted it yesterday, and then I added some stuff while we were talking. So. All right.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you all for coming out.
Everybody. Yep. Thank you for chatting with us.
Good night and good luck.
Okay. Let's see.